Hi, everyone. As I've posted and announced earlier, I'll be talking today on a very special topic and with a very special person. But before that, as usual, I'd set off the theme. Um, a child at birth is not aware of the gender it is born with. It is the society that determines it for them. For example, a girl child at birth is as much human as the male child. But somehow, however accidental the gender we are born with is, it becomes a deciding factor in our lives. I was reading a book by Simone Beauvoir, The Second Sex. It's a beautiful book, and I'll quote two things from there. One is a beautiful quote where she says, quote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." And the second one is a freedom which is not entrusted is in sorry a freedom which is entrusted only in denying freedom must be denied. So these are the quotes which I think sets the tone for the today's talk. But we are going to be speaking about to a very bright and beautiful woman who has challenged many stereotypes, including that of Islam. We will find out more from her, explore her journey with her, and how this all led to her self exploration and to a place where she is today. So I'll add Nuria Khan. Hi, Nuria.
Hi, Sultan Salateen. Hi, everyone.
So, Nuria, if you would like to do a small introduction of yourself where you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I just want to say I think you are the first woman that I've actually spoken to since I've started my activism, which has been really recently anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think conversations like this are so important, and I'm actually very excited. So thank you for reaching out to me, and thank you for giving us the platform to be able to have this conversation. I think when women come together, it's our voices are a lot more kind of unique and nuanced than if this was, kind of anybody trying to say the same thing. So, yeah, thank you very much, first of all, to you and for all the work you've been doing in this space.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, just a little introduction about myself. I am a second generation British Pakistani. I was born into a Sunni Muslim household, so just your kind of typical moderate to conservative Pakistani household, I guess, who had just been living in the UK for a long time. And obviously, I was Muslim for most of my life, actually. And a couple of years ago, I decided, when I looked into Islam a lot closer than I had before, that I obviously needed to get the hell away from this religion. But yeah, so recently I've just kind of got back to the UK, and I realized this was a slightly more of a safe space than where I was before to kind of voice my thoughts and opinions. And just by virtue of my life experiences, it opened my eyes to a whole host of problems that I didn't know existed, but they make a lot of sense. And it describes a lot of what's happening in our society. So I did think it's time for me to use my voice and build a platform to hopefully educate women into what's actually like the tenets of Islam say about them, as
Mm,
opposed to the fluffy version that I was also a big believer of when I was a Muslim, and just get them to, if not leave Islam or like altogether, but just to question and to
mm,
understand what it is that their religion says. So yeah, a lot of my activism stems from a place where I want to be appealing to and kind of connecting with women, because the topics I focus on have huge ramifications for women. So I haven't really even gone into like, scientific or philosophical um, issues with Islam. It's purely just the fact that, as a woman, first and foremost, that is enough for you to realize that Islam is not for you. But yeah,
mhm.
that's just a quick introduction. I hope that helps.
It does. It does. We'll start from the beginning. You when you said you're second generation Pakistani and born in Britain. So how has your growing up years been? How formative was Islam in that? And sometimes when I myself live abroad and I see the contradiction that the families go through. The you the there is a certain identity crisis, I would say, among them, and they struggle hard to maintain their religion. They become sometimes more religious than their families back home. So I would like to know your experience.
Yeah, sure. No, that's completely true what you're saying. I mean, because just by default, when you live in the West and you do come from a country you've kind of immigrated, I think the first generation especially. So in my case, it was my grandparents' generation. They really, really try and cling on to the exact same culture as back home. But again, you even just to live here and by all those years of living here, you do start to accept like pluralism and multiculturalism because you are effectively in a Western country. So you have to mold to their ways in certain ways, but they still very much held like religion and culture as like tantamount to their very existence. So even within the communities, they have kind of their own little bubble. So similar people from similar backgrounds, and they spend most of their time together. Then the second generation have a different kind of identity crisis because
Mm,
they've been mingling a lot more. They've been going to school with Westerners. They're
mm,
exposed to so much more, but they come home to those strict traditional values, and they kind of are almost forced to hold on to that in a way to assert their differenceness from the gore, if you will, or the Western people around them. So that claim, like, I think Islam really helps in that sense because the claim to be a Muslim is enough. Like they can do anything, they can hang out with whoever they want, but the fact that they're Muslim is kind of what they hold on to and is their identity manifesting itself. And
mm,
then I was born into that household again. So when you're living in that extended family unit, you're kind of exposed to your grandparents' version of them holding on to their culture. Then you're experiencing your parents having tried to assimilate, but also saying, no, at the end of the day, we're Muslim, we're Pakistani, this is the way we do things, even though you're fully, from the outside, you look fully acclimatized to the West. So I was very young when I was living in the UK. I was born here and I lived here till I was 9. But I was very close to my grandfather, who was obviously quite religious. He was the imam at the local mosque, and I think because our relationship was quite close, when I tried to excel even more in like in my Quran classes, and I would really try and recite well, and I would try and learn meanings, just to, I think, impress him and bond with him some more. Um, because I could see how proud he was of me compared to like his other
mm,
grandchildren because I was taking such an interest. And I think it became part and parcel of that for me as well. Like, okay, what is my actual identity? I do need to manifest the fact that I don't have the same morals as the Christian friends I go to school with. We are different, we do things differently. So I started to get more like hold on to religion or care about it more. I started to When I was 9, I decided to wear the hijab completely on my own accord. A lot of
wow.
yeah. So a lot of families, obviously there's a level of it's implied, if not like heavily enforced, but it's kind of
Mhm,
implied that you will. For me, it was actually the complete opposite. My parents were quite moderate in that sense from the beginning, and it was
mm,
primarily me wanting to get closer to God that
mm,
made me want to wear it at that age. So yeah, it was a bit, so basically I did like even at school, for example, I would always kind of like really try and show the fact that I was Muslim whenever we had the chance to demonstrate it. Religious studies, I demonstrated how to read namaz or prayer. Like I'd always talk about the good elements of Islam, and like how the Prophet Muhammad stopped little baby girls from being buried alive, sorry. And like I did have that mentality for a long time, up until my early teens when I moved
mm.
to Saudi Arabia, and then I kind of had a different experience with everything.
Okay. Um, you said that you went into a phase of hijab and all that. I sort of can identify with that because, but for me it was difficult and different because I was in Pakistan, and in Pakistan the society around you is such, and there is a certain appreciation for women, as you said, who are more religious and who cover themselves up, and they are considered more respectable, and I thought that drove me towards it. But do you in your mind have a specific time where you realize what the religion was asking you to do was too much for you, and where was the point where it dawned on you basically
Hmm.
that it's wrong what they are saying, what they are believing in, um, it's atrocious.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very good question. Because it didn't happen till quite recently, and I don't think it would have happened. I would never have. I was happy with the things that I knew about Islam and what it did for me, and I never dared to question, like, why is it that women need to cover up, and why is that burden only on us, and why are all of these, like, this whole concept of honor placed on us and skewed heavily towards us. But I wouldn't have ever questioned these things until or unless something as like significant as what happened to me did. So when the Sharia law was put on me, which is called da zawjiyya, which is the forceful return of a wife to her husband,
Hmm.
and then you just can't leave without his permission. So effectively, you're kind of kept against your will as a hostage.
Yeah.
And even then, I believed Islam so strongly with my heart that I could not believe that this would be sanctioned by any of the ayats or anything in the Quran. I just thought this was, maybe it's like a really, really bad implementation of Sharia law by men. And
Mhm.
they've just messed with it to make it work in their favor. But there's no way that God Himself or Allah could allow this, let alone codify it in His divine book.
Mhm.
So it was only until I actually had to work backwards through what happened to me to try and understand it, because that's why I was trying to. I wanted to defend my position as a Muslim woman, and I thought that Allah would have my back, and the Quran would never say anything like this. Neither would the Hadith. So I looked into it to try and say, okay, yeah, this is good. This is what the Quran says. These guys have completely taken this and like flipped it on its head and, just used legal loopholes to make this happen. But essentially, when I did work backwards from the Sharia law that was put on me to the Quran, to the Islamic sources, to the Hadith, to these discussions of how law should be implemented when it comes to things like nushuz and disobedience from the wife,
Hmm.
I I realized that, oh, holy crap, this is actually, like, the Quran sets the basis for this. So am I saying that the very book that I used to consider, like the just the divine eternal word of God, the guide for life, everything, is actually telling me that I can be sent back, and I am the property of a man, and I he has a right over me, he has authority over me, he can beat me if he fears discipline. Like, I just, that's obviously what made me see the link with Islam. Otherwise, I think I would have honestly probably been happy in a bubble as a progressive Muslim, because I would kind of, especially after 9/11, I didn't even know if I could identify with like normal Islam, because uh, Islam had got such a bad reputation around the world post 9/11, and like the countries that I would live in had extreme ramifications between Saudi and England, and it affected my life in so many ways. And one of the 7/7 bombers even shared the same last name as me, and I mean, I experienced this whole kind of, there was a tension in the air in these countries, and I just wanted to separate myself. So at that time, I kind of looked into, how can I, surely there's a nicer bit of Islam, how can Islam motivate people to do these things? And then I kind of was leaning more towards Sufi Islam, and I think I just found comfort in thinking, God is love and love is good. And I would read more like Rumi poetry and Shamsi Tabriz, and I was kind of just, but I would never ever ever have got to a point where I even would like think that it was possible to leave Islam like outright. I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think that people did that. I didn't even know the word ex-Muslim existed for a very long time. Sorry.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and I can understand what you where you're coming from, because growing up as Muslims, you only see Muslims around you, and you don't interact with people who have left Islam. So
Yeah.
that's a given. You don't even think it's possible that anyone can do that, let alone a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how do you put this claim to test? When I talk to Muslims, they are so enthusiastic about women, and they
Hmm.
say we treat our women like queens, and they are the most respectable beings in Islam, whereas the West, totally, misuse them, and they mistreats them, and it's not women are not at a better place when they're in any other culture but Islamic. So what do you have to say to that?
To be honest, like, even we don't even have to go back like historically into Islamic scriptures and what it says about women, for you to understand the position of women in Islam. But second of all, to even make that claim, I mean, one just has to look around. Sorry, one just has to look around the world in Muslim majority countries and just look at how gender inequality is skewed, and look at, I mean, there's actual Pew surveys and things like this done into the number of women in countries like Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Sudan, in Saudi, who genuinely believe that it is a woman's right to be, it is a woman's obligation to be obedient to her husband, and that a husband can discipline his wife. So they're basically internalizing and advocating things like domestic violence. And I mean, I'm not saying that these problems don't exist in the West. They most definitely do. But the fact that in the West, first of all, you have the, I'm so sorry for the background noise, by the way. I don't know what's happening today in my area. But yeah, sorry, it's gone now. Yeah, so it's just ridiculous to assume that Islam gives a good starting point for women to kind of live their best lives, even in countries like Egypt, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think again for women, like we there's not enough role models, especially within this community within a community that we are, like sorry, minority within a minority that we are, like the ex-Muslim community, and then women within that. There's only a handful of women who have come forward in, let's say, our lifetimes, who are saying that, Islam in my conservative country, that's a Muslim majority country, Islam is actually a problem. It's stalling education, it's stalling women's empowerment. In Egypt, like the activist Nawal al-Sadawi would actually shine light on the fact that like a whole 2 generations of Egyptian women are essentially confined to their houses and think domestic violence is entirely okay. But the bigger, wider ramifications of that is that they're like encircled in poverty, and they're passing it on to their kids, and it's just continuously perpetuating this cycle of poverty, because you've got half of the population who are just not able to contribute to society. And there's that saying that if you educate a woman, you'll educate the next few generations,
Yeah.
as opposed to if you educate a man. So it's a similar thing. And, I don't understand what these Muslim apologists cling to when they say that women are disrespected in the West, and, they're hypersexualized and they're forced to wear these things. And, I mean, that's not true. If that was the case, then I wouldn't be able to sit here in this jumper. Like, everything is choice based and consent based. And these two things are very much lacking in Islamic majority countries. This is why women try their best, if they have the option to get out of there and live a free life. We've seen so many cases, starting from like Rahaf Mohammed and all these, and then women who in Saudi would do things like even just dare to ask for the right to drive, and now driving has been legalized for women, but the women who started that protest are rotting in jail. So this is in 2021, like we're discussing things like women have just recently been given the right to drive. So you can't actually compare what they claim that the West is doing, and the way that women are treated here, as opposed to the way they are back home. And there's some much more like kind of deeper things as well at play. Like, again, I know Saudi Arabia is currently trying to reform and modernize with MBS in power, but the fact that they still have concepts like, the male wali guardianship. So essentially,
Mm-hmm.
just like the Quran says, I mean, at best, I think in Islam, a woman is a piece of property, but they have actually taken this system and said that as a woman, you can't travel abroad. Up until last year, a Saudi woman could not travel abroad by herself. You need the permission of your father, your brother, your grandfather. If none of them are alive, your closest uncle. Like, this is where your agency comes from. It's so taken away from you and passed on to just male, any other male that suits this system. And that's the fact that Islam does this. Islam is the root cause in taking agency away from a woman and turning her into this piece of property. So yeah, I just think that claim is so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that, and it's really laughable the way they say when once when you read, what rights women have in Islam, whether it's the considering them half-wit, or the denying them the property rights, or even if they are raped, they have to produce for witness. There are so many things which disturb me, which actually I wonder how come the women follow Islam. It makes me wonder really that except for pure conviction and faith, you can't
Hmm.
be, serious following this and considering yourself that you'll be going to heaven listening to all the men and denying yourself your existence. And but
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, it's
uh,
great. You know what I think the problem is, honestly, it comes down to the most simple thing because, well, I am just talking from my experience, but I can also see around me, like the women who are still following Islam, let's say even around me in my extended family and even in my immediate family, because I'm clearly saying things that obviously are going to like really, really hit home with them. Like, what do you like? Certain things they already know, like for example, women get half the inheritance and a woman's testimony is worth half. But then the deeper things beyond that, like when we are kind of being compared to the way you trade camels, and we are being that's how they're told to discipline us as well, that the way they discipline their domestic animals, and the fact that Aisha is saying um, stuff like the no woman suffers as much as the believing woman, and looking into her age some more, they actually just don't know the darkness that's encapsulated in this ideology. When Aisha's saying in the hadith, like, you've, oh prophet, you've compared us to dogs and donkeys, like you're likening us to this. And she was saying this in 7th century Arabia. It's just been so like heavily watered down and sanitized, the version that's fed to, I think, most modern like progressive Muslims. If a lot of them haven't read the Quran with that same like tenacity to understand exactly what it says word for word in their own language, or maybe if they see something that they come across that's very like, it's such a disservice to women, they would just put it down to um it being allegorical, or them not being able to understand the Arabic behind it. Or a lot of it was when, and I did this, I was very guilty of this when I was a Muslim woman. I would just you internalize so much misogyny that without even realizing it. Like, I actually thought, okay, maybe women should have half the inheritance because it's their husbands that will take care of them, and then
yeah,
that makes sense because then my brother should have more because he needs to provide for his wife, whereas my husband will also provide for me, and then I'll also get a bit of what's left from my parents, but it's fair that my brother gets more. Like, you would actually rationalize and justify these
yeah,
things, which is why it's only once you leave Islam behind completely. And honestly, every day that I've left Islam behind, I realize even more like how messed up the implied and inherent misogyny is in it. But
yeah.
because while you're there, you're still giving free passes to so much of it. You know what I mean? Because you're part of it, basically.
I know what you mean, and it goes even a step further. The women being the cause of the sin and cause of the all evil that exists around you, you somehow see the other women through that lens also, which is very disturbing. That whether you decide for their character, if they are working, if they're smoking, if they have a tattoo, if they're, everything is looked upon in a different perspective when you're Muslim, because you have to be that, dolled up in that burqa thing,
Mm-hmm.
for to appeal to the Muslim sensibilities. And it's weird that they can't look past that. And as a woman, you think that's very respectable. As I said, I was in a phase when I tried the whole chadar thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't meant only for the men around you to give you respect. It was from women also, and they love you when you do that. They are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, how decent of you, how nice of you," and you're respected all the more. And
Yeah.
that's what disturbs me. That
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, the fact that even here, like I know it's like to the nth degree in Pakistan, but even here in the UK, for example, within the communities, like you're saying, if a girl decides to wear hijab, or if a woman decides to, it's like applauded within the community so much. And if she has decided to wear it and then takes it off, it's like, oh my God, did you see what she did? Or like, she's
yeah,
gone down the drain, or she's, and that's why I think my family freaked out when I wore it at 9, because they're like, oh, she's still so young and she's going to change her mind. Maybe, like, her mind will change like later on down the line. But other the I guess just the way that people would talk and the things that would be said about me was more of a concern, because putting it on and then taking it off, I guess, is worse than when you just wear it and celebrate. But the problem you're describing is one of the, I think this is one of the things that keeps us entrapped in this misogyny. It's because women are so eager to kind of police each other anyway, and then celebrate the things that are, like you said, if only they knew that these weren't things to celebrate, these are actually, you know, detrimental to us. But this concept of this internal policing and then celebrating the fact that we get, you know, oh, these women are the best, the ones who are overtly pious and they cover more, and someone with a tattoo or somebody who, you know, smokes shisha, she's just like off the rails. And they'll always celebrate women who are on this end of the extreme, where it's like to do with covering up and things. But again, this is because in the top, like even now, that women who are kind of from the generation or two above me, they are helping to keep this misogyny so intact because they're such a big part of they're almost safeguarding it because of the internalized misogyny that they have and everything that they've seen in their lives. They know nothing better than, like, they don't know a freed woman, they don't know an empowered woman who can make her own choices. They have spent most of their life kind of being, as much as they can, devoutly obedient to their husbands, thinking that, you know, once you get married, these are the cards you're dealt, and whether he beats you or abuses you or whatever, you need to put up with it. And then the constant, like, the reinforcing of policing other people and what they're wearing and celebrating it. And like you said, you felt respected not only by men but your own fellow Muslim women. You kind of feel like, yeah.
You feel like that is why I think most of the women in Western world who come from Muslim family do that all the more, because not only you're standing out as a person, you're doing something different from what society is doing, but also the fact that the people not only in the Muslim community, not in the Western land that you are in, but people back home also are in awe of you, and they like admire you and praise you.
Yeah.
um, um, did you know about the stories of Aisha in depth and Rehana bint Zaid or Safiya and the sex slaves, and or or as you said earlier, you did, but you try and make excuses. What was it for you?
Yeah, so to be honest, I honestly wish I had known about these stories beforehand. But this is why I, you know, when you do leave Islam and you kind of do your own research and you find out these things, I genuinely feel, I understand why certain ex-Muslims feel bitter in the beginning, because you feel like you were lied to on such a mass scale. I would go to Quran classes every single day after school. We would talk about stories, you know, there'd be like a dars setting. I don't know the word in English, but like you would have these discussions and you would talk about like women and their role in Islam. But I was fed such a sanitized, rosy version where, you know, even on the prophet's last sermon, one of the final things he said was, take care of your women and treat them well. Then I had to look into the actual original final khutbah, and I was like, oh my god, even this, like, they've just lied on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because in that he says treat them like that because they cannot handle their own responsibilities. So
Mm.
again, it's just casting us into this whole category where you're subservient and you're reliant on men. But yeah, these stories, honestly, I was told things like the prophet's sweat even smelled like roses. Female infanticide was absolutely stopped when he came.
Yeah.
Slavery was a thing of the past. He, you know, this woman would abuse him every day and he didn't do anything. Like, it's just all of these stories that they've cherry picked to tell me as a young, impressionable mind, as a young girl, with them as my only source of authority. I fully believed it. And it was only when I actually looked into the Quran to understand why the Sharia law was put on me,
Mhm.
um, that I obviously went back to the hadith, and then I did some more research, and I'm like seeing Aisha say these things, and I was like, oh, what does she, is there a double meaning here? Like, what is she actually saying? Because this doesn't sound like a woman who's like constantly in awe of the prophet. She's kind of complaining, or she's kind of saying what's happening here. Or, and then looking into these stories, I mean, I was absolutely disgusted. Like, not just, you know, the way that every wife after Khadija is treated by the prophet. Like, she basically, I mean, Khadija was probably the most successful and had the most agency and was, you know, able to live her life according to her own terms. After that, all of the women were basically confined to their houses and just, you know, there to pleasure the prophet or whatever. But um, reading into it, I was like, oh my God, so
Mm.
not just Muslim women that are, they have to speak to men from behind a curtain now, and there's this whole thing to cover up and stay confined to your houses, but it's also the non-believing women and the way they treat them and the way that they think they're fair game. And then obviously like the sex slaves and being able to take, those who your right hand possess and have sex with them, and the detail it goes into to don't pull out, like it was absolutely repulsive. And then obviously the story of Rihanna and Safia, as you mentioned, again, so there was so much there that just put questions in my mind, because I'm like, no woman would willingly ever, no matter how much she was, let's go with what the apologists say, and she was won over by Islam and she wanted to marry the prophet. No, if your dad and your brother and your tribe have basically been obliterated before your eyes, you're not going to want to marry that man, let alone consummate a marriage with him soon after. Like,
Then
this is
behave.
just, yeah, exactly. This is, it's repulsive. And then other stories as well. I think she was a poet, Asma bint Marwan, and
Yeah.
al Kirfa, who they snapped
Yeah.
her legs between two camels. Like, I couldn't believe, I genuinely could not believe it. So as a woman, I didn't even need to go into like, oh, does the Quran say anything good about like the cosmos and the earth, and does it have? I was like, no, this is enough for me to know, like, this is purely written by men. This is so like, it's just so self-deprecating for a woman to read this and think, you know what? Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Sure.
Yeah, I know. Because when I was growing up, I grew up in Pakistan. So for me, I was told that it was normal in Arabic countries to marry so young, whereas
Hmm.
Aisha was concerned. I didn't know anything about Asma bint Marwan. I didn't know anything about Rihanna bint Zaid. I didn't know anything about Safia. They were told um, that it's something, as you said, you're only presented with the story of that Jew woman who used to throw garbage at Muhammad, and
Hmm.
Muhammad used to be very polite to her and would say, once she was sick, and he went and inquired about her and asked her, and she was so inspired by Muhammad, and that she became Muslim.
Uh-huh.
This is
And I
what we
think there's
heard.
another story as well with like this woman who used to be a prostitute, and she fed milk to a cat, and then the prophet said she'd go to hell. Like, maybe there was two or three stories where like a woman was slightly maybe not killed by the prophet or not forced to have sex with him, that we were like, yeah, it's so good and nice and he's an amazing man.
Yeah, he kills people. Yeah, he does that, but still, he's a nice man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, were you only told the nice stories as well? Like, how did it work in terms of your like
Um,
religious know-how and education?
I was not born in a religious family, so I was spared the basic torture. But
Hmm.
growing up in Pakistan, you grow up with people and religious stories all around you.
Yeah,
So that is why I think growing up, you also consider that is Islam and all that is very true, because everyone around you is so convinced and hell bent on making you believe those stories, that it
hmm.
becomes this kind of a theory in your mind that it's right. But
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know much about it. It was really surprising when I heard about the first story that I read was of Hirfa, and I was horrified.
yeah.
I didn't know what to expect and how to, even process that story, because you're never told things like that, which is weird.
Because you just think about like, I mean, our mind can't even think about how brutal that is, right? Let alone for the man that we essentially not worship in the same sense as Allah, but you worship him as a human being you want to emanate or you should strive to be like. And the fact that he's ordered something like this, and it's there like plain as day in the sources, but it was kept. I like, they've honestly done so well to be able to keep these things, because this is why I think it's so important for women to speak out, because we don't need to rely on anything else. All we need to say is, look what Islam does to women.
Yeah.
But we like honestly the ex-Muslim like male activists out there have, I think, more of an issue, because when they're debating people and they're going into like theology and cosmology and stuff, we can literally just say, do you think you're half a man, because that's what Islam says you are.
Yeah.
Do you think, yeah, like it's so basic for a woman to be like, I don't know if it's more the empathy card or whatever, but just the thought of a woman going against the prophet and him ordering her legs to be snapped between, you're right, I didn't know how to process that as well. Like, it really hit me hard for like a good day or two. I just couldn't think about anything else. But it only helped in making me realize that this is a very, very dark ideology with bits that a lot of people are just unaware of, to be honest. And I think because as a woman, you know, it's so hard to leave once you do internalize that misogyny. Like, I think because of what happened to me, I kind of got like a wake up call that pushed me to
Mhm.
like confront and realize that maybe I'm also being, am I letting myself down by thinking I deserve half inheritance? Am I letting myself down by thinking my testimony should be half? Like, these aren't things that I should justify to myself because I'm a Muslim woman. Then I started thinking about those things and I was like, no, this is this is gender inequality, like codified. This is
Yeah.
apparently sanctioned by my God. Do I respect this God? Well, I still probably would, but then the amount of violence I saw in the Quran, the amount of violence the Prophet's carrying out, like with Girfa, I was like, this cannot be sanctioned by a God, you know? There's no way.
Yeah, no, same here. My sister is religious, so even she, growing up in a, kind of a liberal family, we were made to, aware of certain facts, and we used to ask questions. So my sister, despite being religious, she asked her husband, who is Muslim, by the way, both are, but she asked him that, would you marry your 6 year old daughter to a 60-year-old man? And he said no. And my sister was like, this is what happened to Aisha, basically. So if we process that, and if we internalize these stories, this is the greatest example of misogyny. And and yet the claims to treating women with respect and all that, you can stone her to death, for,
Yeah.
but that's something else. But still, we respect women a lot. They have to cover themselves up. They are eye
Hmm.
candy, but they have to cover themselves up. Yet
Hmm.
we respect women a lot. I don't
Yeah.
understand the audacity sometimes, that these people carry around, passing judgments center, right, left, everywhere, without even having a consideration, without even trying to understand the other perspective. I do understand that it's your choice. You want to cover, you cover. I
Yeah.
give you that. I'm totally okay with it. You want to
Yeah.
believe, believe. But don't impose your beliefs on other people or your children or your family. That is what disturbs me. Have you come across incidents or stories of women who had gone through such treatment from their family when they were trying to be so little bit more liberal or proactive in their life and taking control of their lives? Was it Have you come across such women?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, like no matter how progressive and liberal you think your family are, like there are just certain things which are not like awarded to women. The fact that, I mean, even me personally, to be honest, like I've had to kind of really stand my ground to be able to do certain things that, you know, because you're living in that setting, they just don't like. For example, something as simple as like a cousin who's exactly my age, but he's a boy. He
Hmm.
can literally go out all night in England, have the time of his life, and come home and say to, you know, the elder generation that, yeah, I was out and I had a great time.
Hmm.
However, being the exact same age, wanting to do the exact same thing, I couldn't say it to them in the same way. Like I would not, that would not be okay for me to do. It was, why are you there? What do you think you're doing there?
Hmm.
You shouldn't be out there. You shouldn't be wearing those. You shouldn't be around those people. So there's a whole double standards in the first place. You know, even guys within my own family, they don't get the same questions and the same level of scrutiny. They don't get their shopping bags checked for what kind of clothes they've bought. They don't get like any of that. It's always more of a struggle as a woman to kind of assert your authority. And like, you know, you try and do it in certain ways. When I was younger, I remember like when I wanted to get my first tattoo, I had to do it in a place where nobody would ever see or question it, because they literally look at you as if you're completely lost. You know, you are some like, I don't know, just like a loose whore or something. The fact that
Yeah.
you've done this and Islam is so against it, and what do you think you're doing? And none of it's really from an actual like, you know, let's have a conversation about this. It's like, oh, Islam says you should not like do anything to your body that's permanent. What are you doing? And like, why are you attracting, excuse me, attention to your body? So yeah, I've seen that all the time. I see that literally with British Pakistanis or British Muslims who are my generation. They are falling out with their parents. They're finding ways to move out just so that they can express themselves or live without having that like judgment and that fear of being, you know, labeled as such bad things kind of down their neck all the time. So now I think like especially girls who have like seen this treatment where they're treated so differently from their own brothers or their own cousins, that are really trying to put their foot down and say, no, I have the right to live my life according to my own terms. And if that takes me moving away from you, then so be it. But again, you have to be like financially independent, and then that takes a whole nother layering of realizing that your own family could potentially be toxic
Yeah.
for your life and for your surroundings. And that's a hard decision to kind of break away from your parents and make the decision to live alone, because you don't know if they're gonna kind of accept you again or want to keep in touch with you, and that brings a whole nother host of emotional problems. But yeah, definitely, like we said earlier, I think anytime, even now for my generation, anytime somebody is keeping all the fasts or they're starting to pray more or they decide to wear the hijab, it's like celebration and like, you know, like just like claps all around. Whereas if somebody's going the other way, it's just, oh, have you heard about so and so? She's completely gone down the drain, or you know. And
Yeah.
that's a massive battle that we need to fight, because we're fighting our own people and our own family essentially, but we're saying we have the right to just live life on our own terms and make our own choices. But again, little things that go are so like deep rooted in Islam, for example, like a good wife is expected to be devoutly obedient.
Yeah.
And
Those
that's
are.
what, yeah, exactly. You're just a doormat who should provide sex like when and wherever your man you know, desires it or asks for it. And even that's dogs. Like if
Yeah.
you don't, you get cursed until it's just, I mean, it really, once you see,
Angels actually curse you throughout.
yeah, the angels curse you all night or something
And
till
nothing better
morning.
to do actually. There are people dying of hunger. There's a lot of evil that is around you, but the angels have spare time to curse a woman.
Yeah, they are so worried that your man hasn't got action more than like kids starving in Africa. They're like cursing you all night. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. It really appalls me. And what do you think of the concept of heaven? It's another. It's a joke basically for me. If I look at it as Harris is also here, I'll add him also to the stream.
Oh no
Uh,
no 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 no!
oh,
I'm not here. Sorry, I accidentally I you sent the link. I just thought I'll click on it. Sorry, I'll get out. I'll watch you guys on YouTube. Sorry.
okay, okay. So the concept of heaven is also very ridiculous, as it appears to me that all the action would be around men, and they would be getting like 72 virgins, and they'd be like, sleeping with them and eating. And what is there for women to do actually in heaven?
Yeah, to be honest, this is something that annoyed me even when I was a Muslim. I was, because, like, you know, you want to go to heaven. That's why I'm wearing hijab and stuff. That's why I'm trying to be a good Muslim. Like, I want to get there. But then I would think about, well, what is it that's there, or what's the Islamic description? Because, you know, it's so that point that men get 72 virgins is so heavily emphasized. But okay, what does that do for women besides open up questions to the fact that if you genuinely like love somebody and you can't imagine the fact that they would even want to be with 72 virgins, or the fact that, you know, what happens there? Do you not? And I would always ask that question, and you're told stuff like, oh, you don't experience jealousy in heaven and there's no such thing. And you know what, you'll also have like handsome young boys serving you. Like, first of all, that really weirded me out as well. I was like, what if I don't? What? So child slave labor in heaven? Like, that's okay. So there's almost like brothel-like behavior, and then there's child labor. Like, why are people being servantile? And like, why is there the concept of slavery? And why are they young, handsome boys? This is just, it seemed very perverted to me, but because you're kind of wrapped into wanting to believe in this, because this is what you genuinely consider truth, you would never push past that. Like, I actually believed, I was like, okay, fine, there will be no such thing as jealousy, so I'll be reclining on my throne and eating grapes or whatever, and there's rivers of wine and honey. But then again, I was like, it's not really fun. Like, the wine doesn't get you drunk. Honey, I've got it in my fridge
What is
downstairs.
the use of wine if it doesn't get you drunk? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just
Like, why would
grape
you?
juice.
There's grape juice, exactly. So yeah, there was really like, I didn't understand, and there was just nothing. I don't know if the Christian heaven is more enticing or what or not, because at least, like, there was this whole thing about the Garden of Eden and the tree of knowledge, but in Islam it just seemed so it just seemed like it was catering towards such like carnal, animalistic desires, which I don't think you would want eternally. Like, I surely wouldn't want that eternally. But then even for women, like, okay, men get 72 virgins. Women, apparently, according to Muhammad, are the majority in hell. And the times that women are described in heaven in Islam is as virgins. And so you're just like, okay, if I'm basically a less of a human being in this life, I have to cover up, I have to be subservient, I have to be obedient to my husband, and then in the next life he gets access to 72 virgins. I'm just chilling with some beautiful young boys who are serving me things. Like, there's if Islam doesn't serve me in this life, it's not really serving me in the next life. As a woman,
But where's
there's
the
not
line drawn with men and those beautiful boys serving just food and drinks, or does it go a step further?
Honestly, there's some really dodgy hadith out there, but I don't want to. I don't know. From what I've read, is basically just the kind of like say Bukhari and say Muslim ones focus more on the fact that they'll be serving for sure. But there are some dodgy hadith about where, I mean, I think again, it's more for men. It's more for men, but they're saying that there'll be things there for their pleasure, whichever way they're inclined. Which is just, I mean, I was way done with Islam at this point to look into, like, the heaven was already so distractingly, like, just, it didn't seem like it's there's nothing heavenly about it, if you will. Like, there's really not. It seems like a perversion of heaven, to be honest. Like, I know a lot of men would consider that hell after a while as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the description of the virgins
You
are as
only
well, but
have
it sounds
seems
really weird.
it
Yeah.
seems really boring that you'd be, how much sex can you have actually? How much does it take you to satisfy you? And that's the only thing. And the food, there's nothing else. There's no, nothing else that is promised. Whereas the women is concerned, I was told slightly different. I was told that the women, the wife, would be the in charge of Sardarni of the whores, the virgins, and she would be these were virgin whores would
You're like the matriarch pimp.
now that you put it that way, I totally agree.
Who are you pimping out today to your husband? Gosh.
Yeah, I know. And it's really weird and sad, and that still it doesn't serve as a wake up call for many. But even if you're not a woman, at least try and understand what the religion is coming from and where, in what place, and how insecure they are with women around them, that they can't even let them have autonomy over their own body. They are not, it's like you're clipping their wings, basically. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. um Muslims all argue that there must be something wrong within our personal lives with ourselves, that we have a problem with Islam, and it's not just the Islam which is causing the problem. I saw, if you know of Infidel Noodle,
Mm-hmm.
how she was targeted online on Twitter and everywhere, that, oh, she has a broken family, and oh, she has
Yeah.
gone through this, and this is what led her to leave Islam. And Islam is such a beautiful and all embracing religion, that it loves you and it gives you this and that, although it chops your hand and, kills you. But
Mm.
still, it's very, peace loving and beautiful religion. What do you have to say to that?
But sorry, what was the fact that Muslim apologists say it's really beautiful as a religion?
No,
Is that your question?
they say that it's our personal experiences, our
Oh,
lives
yeah.
being messed up, that makes us leave Islam, and not the Islam itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, and really quickly, I think Mahli Sarkari is saying few bottles of wine will get you drunk. No, because it says it's wine that will never get you drunk. So it's just even a few bottles, like nothing will. Which again, what kind of shitty heaven is this? We'd rather party in hell. But
Right.
yeah, sorry to answer your question. Yeah, I think this is definitely like one of their tactics. It's to delegitimize the emotional reasons for what led to leaving Islam, and kind of just putting the spotlight on that and saying these are like personal traumatic tragedies, and you're kind of blaming Islam. So Islam is the scapegoat for the problems that you have, but you're just kind of lashing out on Islam. And I think this is honestly, it's a cheap shot. It's a very, very cheap shot, because I mean, which family doesn't have problems? Not everybody has a perfect relationship with absolutely everyone in their families, but to get to a point where you leave Islam and you've not left it for reasons of peer pressure, or kind of like just following a certain tribe, or because that was the latest thing, or people in your school are doing it. Like, you're actually leaving Islam because you have seen things that you cannot digest morally, spiritually, in any way. And that's exactly what happened with Infidel Noodle. She was questioning things, that the differential treatment between her and her brother, and as a result, like, she's looked into religion and decided that Islam isn't for her, and then she's received backlash for it. So sometimes their claims are ridiculous anyway, because more of the familial backlash and the polarization and these like issues that come when you actually say the words, I no longer believe in this ideology. And I think that's just, again, they want to protect Islam so much from the scrutiny and people spilling the beans, like us today talking about the story of these women that we had no idea about, when people are actually, they've done so well, like I'm saying, to keep Islam under wraps for so long. I was reading earlier today the apologetics, like versions of the story of Safia, and it was almost laughable. And you're like, okay, but they've gone to such an extent to flip the narrative, so that as a Muslim woman, if I already had like an ounce of belief for God in me, like in Allah and Islam, I would read that and think, oh my God, yeah, she did want to marry the Prophet. She was so taken aback by him. She was so like blown away by the concept of Islam. If that's the only narrative that's fed to them, it's really, really easy to believe that. And when women, especially women, come forward and say, by the way, do you know that the Quran says this, this, and this about us? They have the first line of attack is to say, oh, she's got issues and that's her family. But yeah,
First
that's
thing is that they would term. There's some guy who says, "This is one of the examples. Why don't you change your gender?" Because I think she wouldn't want to be anything less than what she is. She's perfect the way she is, and why would she have to change her gender? So
oh,
you
thank you. And yeah, why the fuck would I change my gender?
I know.
Sorry.
What do you? I
You,
don't understand people and
but
their
he definitely
audacity.
shouldn't, because his gender serves him really well in Islam. So
Yeah, but still, it's really absurd. And please learn how to respect women if you
yeah.
don't know that. And apparently it shows that your religion is not doing a very good job in teaching you that. So
And
please,
please don't change your gender so you end up in Islamic heaven and we are staying the hell away from you.
that's right. I'll add Malij. Malij is here,
Sure.
and I think it's a trio of us.
Awesome.
Malij is also a very strong woman. I love her to bits. She's outspoken, she speaks her mind, and she is absolutely brilliant in dealing with the trolls. So we should learn something from her in that respect. She knows how to answer these people. I think
Hi, hi,
hi,
ladies.
Hi, Mahlij.
Hi, Nuria. How are you?
Good, thank you. Lovely to finally connect with you.
Yeah, I've seen your videos with Haris and everybody, but I don't think we have ever chatted before.
Yeah,
And
no, it's awesome to finally meet you.
yeah, amazing. That's so good. The
Girl
numbers are
power, guys.
growing.
Girls.
yeah. It
Before
really
I,
makes my heart swell to see more women coming out, and it's like it's it makes me really happy. So
oh,
Malij,
it's
shoot
good.
away.
Before I start, I have to tell you something funny. So before I came here, there's different people coming out now as ex-Muslims.
Mm.
And there was apparently another woman from India that was ex-Muslim. Her name was Yasmin Khan. I don't know if you heard about it, but today
Yeah.
her camera got open and turned out to be a guy. So
What? I listened to her whole story. What?
I just thought I'd start with a little laugh, you know?
Oh
So
my God.
so there's all kinds now.
Brave new world.
Yeah, that was just funny. They were talking about it on Salim's channel right now. But you know what the thing is? What I'm happy about is the term ex-Muslim is becoming more normalized now. More and more people are coming out with it. Yeah, there's people that are pretending to be it, but we want it to get normalized to a point where Muslims don't care. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, whatever, another ex-Muslim, who cares? So that would be a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, when they're not threatened by it anymore, and they don't have to send their whole army of trolls against, any what they did to Infidel Noodle. I think they've really, really harassed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I get harassed all the time. I like if you go on my Facebook, I have people that love me, and then I have people that really literally hate me. But
Yeah,
it's
from the
that's
little
the
I've seen
internet.
though, and what I've heard, I feel like you definitely deal with them in the right way. So
Yeah.
kudos.
But this is the internet. You're gonna get trolled no matter what. Like
Yeah.
even people in other professions, if you see they're online, they get trolled. Celebrities get trolled. It just comes, I think, with a job because you're in the limelight,
Mm.
and obviously Islam just gaslights it more. So yeah, I had a guy actually 2 days ago. Was it Friday? Yeah, Friday on Instagram. I'm gonna post his video on my channel. But he was so ridiculous talking to him about Islam. He didn't know nothing. And he was
Yeah.
telling me that you don't know anything. That's the
Yeah.
first argument they say, you don't know anything. You
Yeah.
you haven't studied it. So I'm like, okay, what is the ayat in Quran that says the wife beating one? Oh, you know what? I'm not Hafiz the Quran. I'm gonna read it and then I'll DM it to you. And I'm like, well, I can tell you what it is. And he was just so ignorant and the way he was swearing and everything. So I'm like, but I like it because I'm like, oh, is this Islam teaches you how to talk to women? Must be
Mm.
Islam because that's what they teach you, right? Not to respect women.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you can see that like in the way they talk to you in these comments, like it's so, and it's only these lot that are doing that. So honestly, they're doing our work for us because they're just highlighting that you can only speak to a woman and treat a woman this way and act like you're that entitled to if you come from such a misogynistic background. Like you're just showing yourself up, mate, nobody else,
I know. And it's so evident, yet they fail to understand it. It's ironical that they say it's a peaceful religion, and they at the very instant they'll be like threatening you,
Yeah.
giving you death threats, and yet they would claim, "Okay, it's a very a religion of peace."
Yeah,
Peace.
and
That's what,
so sex obsessed. Like the only comments they have to make are just sex related. Nothing intellectual, nothing clever, just sexual.
so Sultan, Shahid ji that comes on my channel. So I always like have heated conversations with him. So in the same breath, he's like, "Oh, I'm like, okay, what is one good thing about Islam?" He's like, "Oh, it's a peaceful religion," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you guys do to anybody that commits blasphemy or says like something against Muhammad?" He's like, "He's wajibul qatl." I'm like, "This is like how is it peaceful? You mean the
That's so
peace?
funny.
it's weird that they don't even realize it's that, I still don't get it. How can you in the same breath say two totally opposite things and yet believe that you're meaning one of them and the other one could be looked away? How?
Oh my god.
It's weird. um Malish, do you have any questions with Nuria and her journey?
Well, I know you live in UK, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, because now that this is not limited to, certain countries, they are here. So I want to know, how do you find things have changed for you in the UK because of them? Like, do you find them there a lot in politics? Because I see things changing in Canada. I've been here for 25 years, right? So I see things changing here, and the whole Islamophobia thing. And I know England is worse. So how do you find it's changing the West?
How do I find what's changing in terms of like
Well,
ex-Muslims, you mean, or Muslims?
no, not ex-Muslims, the Muslims. Because
Oh,
they're
okay.
coming up here too, right? Like, the whole purpose, what I'm trying to say is, the whole purpose of Islam is to spread Islam all across the world, right?
Yeah.
That's their goal. So they come with that goal here. They come here and they get into, first they become lawyers, and they will get into politics. And then comes the changes of, like, oh, we want a prayer room. And then we want, mosques. And then we want to do prayers in the mosque, and then on the speakers. And we want to pray on the streets, all those things. So how do you think, does it keep getting worse? Because I've seen some stuff from UK. I know it has gotten worse here. So what is your experience? Like, do you get harassed? Do you live in, like, heavily Muslim populated area? I hope not.
Yeah, no, thankfully I've moved to, there's a lot less of a Muslim population around me. But no, it definitely, like in where I was before, and where kind of I grew up, and where my family's from, like I was explaining to Sultan Salateen as well, the community is so like Muslim, and they're all kind of from some kind of Pakistani background. So they're literally, some parts of the UK, thankfully not where I'm from, but some parts are literally like copy pastes of like Pakistani villages just been transported into England. I was driving through Bradford a couple of weeks ago, and I was listening to normal, like it's called Kiss FM, it's just a normal radio station, and it automatically changed to Hajj FM in Bradford. And all I could see around me was like Hajj and Umrah shops, and just like Malvis and Shurakamis. And I was like, whoa, I cannot, like, if I didn't know I was in the UK right now, you could have fooled me and said this was like a street in Pakistan or an area in Pakistan. I could not wait to get out of there. Like, there was, I mean, there's hardly any. So at least in most places there's like a balance, but in those places they're so heavily concentrated that, like you're saying, so your doctors, the politicians, the people running for parliament, they are all from like the same kind of conservative backgrounds, and a lot of them are Muslims. But England is just diverse in that sense anyway. So we have so you have all these preacher guys, right, that live here mostly, like Muhammad Hijab, Ali Dawa. There's like hordes of them. They'll go to Speaker's Corner. But I do think, thankfully, because even Ali Dawa and stuff, they have sat with ex-Muslims, like vocal ex-Muslims from London. They've had dinner together. So when he does like spew this nonsense about apostates should be killed or whatever, he also is willing to like sit next to you and have a dinner and like not necessarily agree, but they're not out there to kind of or they haven't had the audacity yet to kind of like silence or whatever ex-Muslims at the moment. But yeah, Muslims are pretty much in government, in everything here, and the government is very, very scared of the label Islamophobia. I think, that they are scared to act on certain things in fear of being called like racist or bigoted. Certain real issues that they should actually focus on, like grooming gangs and like just issues that happen in these really concentrated immigrant areas. But yeah, so I think the English government is not as, I mean, look at France, our neighbor. They're so much more bold, but they have to be. But they're also so much more bold in tackling Islamic fundamentalism and people who are willing to take the law into their own hands. Whereas here, I think the police are a lot more kind of like stepping on their toes. And that's an issue. But then again, just the more of us that kind of speak out from here, we've got a massive community here now. I'm not sure, how is the community like in Canada, Mahlij? So I have no idea about that.
The Pakistani community?
The ex-Muslim community.
Oh, the ex-Muslim community. There's a lot of them up here. Actually, there's a lot from Canada. I don't want to name some, but Ali Rizvi's from here. I
Right.
think Mariam Nawazi. I don't know about Yasmin if she's from here or US, but
Oh yeah, I
there's
think
quite a
she is.
few here.
Mariam Namazi is UK based, I think. Yeah.
Oh, no, Mariam Nawazi's UK
Yeah.
based. Yeah, no, there's a few. Abdullah's. I don't know if Abdullah's. Yeah, both Abdullahs are from here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, there's a few people. Well, no, Tariq, but it's not ex-Muslim. Well, he might as well
But
be.
do you guys have like an organization or anything affiliated? Because actually, I was getting some questions about that, and people was, I don't know. Do you like here we have the Council of Ex-Muslims Britain, which
Mhm.
it kind of like really keeps us as a community, and we have like events and stuff. Do you have something similar in Canada?
You know what? I'm pretty sure there must be. I just have never been a part of any ex-Muslim community or groups or anything like that. Just never got interested into all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, when I met Haris last year, that's how I got to know him, and then I got more into it. For me,
Mhm.
I didn't really care who was like I left this religion long time ago, so
Yeah.
for me it didn't matter. And I hung out with a lot of Muslims. Like I think there's a different kinds. You know, there's Muslims that are just Muslim by the name. I know of people here that are atheists, but they won't say it. They
Mm.
don't want to lose their families, or they don't want to, be shunned out of the community. So they just live their lives and they do everything they want.
Mm.
They drink, they smoke, they party, whatever. Like I have a lot of people, and those are the kind of people or Muslims that I know. But then there is the fanatic ones. Their wives will wear the hijab, and they're always crying Islamophobia, and then
Mm.
they're in the media and stuff. Because I know mostly people from the media, so I see like very liberated ones, and then I see the conservative ones, and it's just the funny part is that I see the ones that are very conservative in the Liberal Party. Do you
Yeah.
understand? Like when I see them in the Liberal Party that supports gays, and I just really want to go and question them. Like, what are your thoughts on gays and lesbians?
Yeah.
Would you throw them off the because
The
yeah,
highest roof, or do we
there's a
party with them?
politics.
Yeah.
So, but do you think it's going to change in the future? Looking at now that Taliban's are here, and because that part of the world I find is going backwards
Yeah.
in certain aspects of life. Saudi Arabia, luckily, they're progressing. But what do you see the future of the Western countries?
Yeah, I think obviously the West is on an upward trajectory when it comes to like progressing, and I honestly don't think in the grand scheme of things, issues like Islamophobia or that kind of thing will stop them. I do think it is like a short-term obstacle, but this is kind of like it goes back to like identity politics and like how the issues with wokeism right now and how wokeism has gone so far, and these are just this stuff just affects like a tiny percentile of the population, but in terms of the bigger picture, like the West is moving towards like just constant progression at a rapid scale, but which is why situations like Afghanistan and I mean, maybe even 20 years ago when the Taliban took over, it wasn't maybe like, like people like us who are just younger and more concerned, maybe we didn't freak out as much. But now, especially living in a Western country and you've got your freedoms and you've left an ideology like Islam, you are so aware of what the like Islam ruling a country means for women and what it does. And even in the West, like the call for the focus to be on like women in Afghanistan now losing their rights, a lot of it again you have to question the agenda. Like did we use that concept 20 years ago when we thought women's rights would be in danger to get into Afghanistan, and like Great Britain did it kind of profit off that. So there's that whole argument that, yeah, we went in with the facade of women's rights, but we just went to kind of like, make profit and send our weaponry companies there. But the fact is, like, women will be denied an education now in Afghanistan. And I think people are really, really waking up to the idea that the West is, no matter what it's done, no matter what it does do, every country's foreign policy is different and questionable to some degree. But as in terms of like safeguarding human rights and even little things like now we have no fault divorces here. I mean, you can get married to somebody of the same gender. You can, all of these things are now just things that are taken for granted. They would be new phenomenon back in the day, but now we just accept that as a society. We're moving towards like equilibrium, everyone having equal rights, no matter what. And your opinion, I honestly believe your opinion can be whatever it is, as long as you don't you don't take away somebody's fundamental right to exist. And I think the West acts on that really, really well. And it's because we're moving to, like, we are moving forward as a society. And then we look back at the East, like you were saying, Afghanistan, even Pakistan in some regards, like you do feel like they're just taking steps backwards, or it's going to be harder for you to come out of this situation now. So yeah, that's why, again, like the fact that the three of us are talking here today as three women who have left Islam, all from like a, the similar country, and our next door neighbors are going through like hell, and we can talk openly. This is what is so like crucial. This is the need of the hour, especially because we are in Western countries and we all have this platform.
Yeah. I think we speak for many who are stuck in the countries who cannot speak and they don't have a voice, and we are doing the work for them actually, and hopefully many more would open their eyes, even if they want, even if you want to remain in the religion, but at least ask questions. At least don't listen to what someone tells you. They're coming from a place of privilege, being a man, and they tell you how to live your life, that you need this and that.
Even when you go to a mullah or imam, a sheikh, man, they're just always men telling you what to do and how to do it and what to wear and who to be obedient to. Like, where is the room in Islam to consult a woman imam? That she doesn't exist. The concept doesn't exist. It's ridiculous. You get tired of listening to that authority and read for yourself, and you're like, screw this.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take one question. Sheikhul Islam is here.
Hello, ladies. It's great to talk to you together.
Thank you. It's great for us to have this. Yeah.
I'd like to, too much negativity about Islam. I like to present a positive view of Islam by presenting an excellent hadith. And I'm hoping you guys will rejoin Islam after this religion. Just about this hadith. This particular hadith is all about social justice. And we know we love social justice.
Yeah,
we do.
This is the very epitome of social justice. Now, before I present the hadith, I just want to ask a question, starting with Sultan.
Ji?
Your husband is taken a second wife, and she's a virgin. How many days that he must spend with her exclusively?
Actually, my husband has not done a nikah with me, and he has legally married me.
No, please don't ruin my show. Pretend. You're ruining it for me.
It'll be 50-50, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Well, he's marrying a virgin, second wife. How many days he must spend with her exclusively before he comes back to you?
How can I? Okay. Isn't it 50-50, half a days with her and then 3?
No, you got to give me a number.
Okay, I'll give you. 7 days.
7 days. And next year he's taken on a divorcee. How many days he must spend with her exclusively?
I believe in equality, so the same number.
How many days?
The same, 7.
7 days?
Yeah.
Now you understand. If he spends less than, let's say in the case of virgin wife, if he spends 6 days, that would be injustice for the virgin wife.
Yeah.
Anything more would be injustice for the wife you already have. This is how well it gets. Now, coming back to you, Nuria.
Yeah.
How many days if your husband is taken a virgin wife?
Does he have to spend with her?
Exclusively with her. I mean, you can't bitch about injustice. If he's 10 days, you can't say this is injustice. He's allowed.
This is after he's freshly married to her, yeah?
Yeah. He just had his second wedding, and
okay.
And how many days?
I would say 3.
3 days for a virgin. And what about divorcee?
I'd say the same, because why differentiate, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Melij, your turn. Your husband is taking a second wife. She's a virgin. How many days he got to spend with her exclusively?
Can I just say, we've all divorced him, though, already at this point. No one's tolerating the second marriage. So this is purely hypothetical, yeah?
I would say 7 days. I go with Salateen's answer with the
All
virgin,
right.
and 3 days with the divorcee.
All right. So here we go. I've sent you the answer. We checked with our prophet. He has
Okay,
outlined how many days we can see how difficult it is. You want to open it up,
yeah,
Salateen,
I'm
and
opening
share
it.
the screen? See, it's very difficult for a man because we got to pay attention to all these things. If we don't do it the proper way, we end up in hell. Very
Wait, did you
difficult
say
being a man.
it's difficult because no.
Well, like if I
Because you have to stick to some, you have to break down your schedule does not mean it's difficult.
I'd be doing injustice and I'll be punished in the hell.
Can you guys see this screen?
So yeah.
So here's the screen, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. When anyone who has already a wife marries a virgin should stay with her for 7 nights and then turn to his other wife. But when anyone having a virgin with him, his wife, marries a woman who has been previously married, he should stay with her for 3 nights. Khalid Joan, one of the narrators, said, if I was to say it could be directly traced to the Prophet, I would have told the truth. But he said, such is the tradition. There you go.
Yeah,
So
I mean, what do I get?
there
What
you
do I
go.
get?
No, none of you got it right.
No, I said 3.
Yeah, Sultan
No,
Salateen got it right.
you're right. You're right.
Elaborate at this point.
But 7 days isn't right.
I mean, nothing is right. Talaq is right. With women.
All right, ladies, it's great talking to you. You're doing a great job, and it's always nice to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Have a
you.
good day.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Thank you for
Bye.
making us laugh and realize how ridiculous this is.
Thank
I never
you.
knew something like this existed, actually.
Yeah,
That-
neither did I.
It's weird. It's really weird that they think that, what disturbs me about this religion. I think most of the religions, in particular, I don't know whether it's the culture that was practiced during that time, but it is so dominating. It takes away your freedom from you as a woman. You feel that you have to respect a man, you have to be subservient, you have to be as a daughter, you have to listen to your father. As a if you don't have any other guardian, you have to listen to your brother. Then it's a lot of things that don't make sense. Why can't there be equality? Why? I don't know. What do you think? Is the religion afraid of women, giving them power? And if so, what do you think would happen if they liberate all the women in the world and there's no religion deciding it for you what your role is going to be?
Is this for me? Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both of you actually.
Okay, sure. Okay, yeah. So in my opinion, I think obviously yes, this is completely what's happening. Like you said, I think religion from its infancy has been all about maintaining control and power, and it's always presented itself in a way that it will maintain the pillars of patriarchy and suppress women. So I feel like all religions are inherently misogynistic, even something as simple and supposedly peaceful as Buddhism. In Buddhism, you can never become a monk if you're a woman. Like there's just every religion purely discriminates against women. It's always at the detriment. It's always to the detriment of women's liberties. And I think one of the scariest things for them, I mean, I think there's a hadith where the Prophet says like a woman is like a rib or something, like she's crooked once, something like that. Like it's a really weird concept, but the concept is essentially, and I think this is why child marriage and marrying off young is so encouraged in Islam as well, is because if you let a woman be educated and get past a certain age, she's not going to tolerate being walked all over like a doormat and being kind of confined to the house and being forced to cover and just being like this this object of sexual pleasure and a child rearing machine for her husband. She's going to have her own thoughts and opinions and desires and like aspirations for life. So I think they are extremely afraid of women speaking up, because again, like if women like us speak up, those other women who have internalized all this misogyny for years are confronted with something where they're like, oh my gosh, like is this, like if these people are speaking out for our rights, but these are rights that we don't think that we should have, there is some level of cognitive dissonance being played out there. You are actually considering yourself to not be deserving of rights equal to a man. You're considering yourself to be inferior to a man. So you're actually allowing the tenets of Islam to like seep that deep where you're not worthy enough. These are completely against the basic fundamental human rights for every human being, where, you know, you can't be considered someone's property and you have the right to liberty and life. That's why, again, the law that was put on me, I was like, what is happening here? Because you're actually taking away my fundamental right. And I couldn't believe, like I said, it was linked to Islam. But yeah, I'm not sure how accurate this is. I need to look it up for myself, but I did see a picture of a hadith thing going around Twitter, which said in the Hanafi school of thought, the punishment for apostasy for men is death, but the punishment for apostasy for women doesn't exist, because they never think that a woman would dare apostatize or speak up. And I was like, yes, this is brilliant. But that's what your view is of us. Of course,
But
if
that's
half
not
of the
Bint
world,
Marwan. We can't forget her. She was killed just because she criticized Muhammad. But please carry on.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's completely what you're saying. And I think of course, the fact that when women realize that, okay, this is not for me, it's very much like I really resonate with what Christopher Hitchens says when he says that a woman would only truly be free and literally so powerful and equal in society is when a woman takes charge of her education and her reproductivity. If we have control of our bodies, we understand family planning, we understand contraception, we're not at the behest of men just telling us to have babies. We have access to abortions and things like that, like just normal things which are, you know, here in the West, which women can use like readily, they're readily available. So that, and again here, the right to education, it's almost like schools will call you up if your child is missing school, because it's considered to be the actual duty of the parents and the right of the child. Whereas in Pakistan, you see these like little girls taking care of other people's children at the age of 6, 7, 8, and they're just working so they can pay off their parents' debts back in their villages. So yeah, I think when women speak up, when women are given the right to education and women are told that they can control their bodies, they can control their own reproductivity, Islam is like more so than any feminist in the West fighting the patriarchy. Islam is like very much scared of this. They once they lose their hold on women, they'll lose everything else. Like it will come down like a domino effect, because everything within Islam is continuing that hold that men have over women. Once women stop agreeing to that and stop, you know, justifying being treated in that way, the Muslim men will have nothing to stand by. This whole concept of 4 wives, no marital rape, stay home, have babies, give your husband sex whenever he wants. No woman will tolerate that. So yeah, I think obviously education this is why it's so sad what we see in Afghanistan with women being denied education. In Pakistan, we see the SNC is like taking the focus away from science and focusing on Quran and stuff. Like when girls and boys from a young age are taught to think critically and that they're equal, only then will we progress as a society. But no, I completely agree with you in the sense that the biggest force for Islam to deal with will be the rise and backlash from women. For sure.
Yeah. Madich, your take on that?
I think I agree with Nuria what she's saying, but I think with women, I don't know how back you want to go, but as far as you go back 1400 years, or even in Christianity, or if you look at it, other religions, women have always been the weak one, right? So if we are the weaker link, it's the strongest rule over the weak, right? So it's always been the men that have been going out, earning, bringing in, hunting and stuff. And we were always at home taking care of the kids because we could reproduce. And it's a huge thing if you look at any, not only just religions, but any culture. that they want to spread, not spread, but like, multiply. They don't want their culture to end, their race to end. Even when you heard, what was his name, Daniel, he kept emphasizing on reproducing and having
True.
more kids, right? So
Mm.
even in Christianity, they want to have more kids and reproduce, and that's why they protected the women. They wanted to have them at home, and it's been going on, and it was going on till what, like only like 100 years ago that we actually started getting our rights and stuff. Um, at least we got our rights, like she was talking about, women in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran, Saudi Arabia, like now they can finally drive in 2019. Like, it sounds so bizarre when you think about it. Just something that is so normal, or even just
Yeah.
riding a bicycle. It's so normal to just get on a bicycle and go outside. Like, I remember being in Pakistan, I could ride a bicycle, but it was only inside our gated community, and it was only till a certain age, so as a child, yeah,
What,
I
even in
learned.
Pakistan, you can only ride a bike to a certain age?
Yeah, I grew up, thank God. I didn't grow up in like a very, very, very fanatic family. My family was pretty open-minded, so luckily I was that way. But yeah, no, I did. And then after that, you're like, okay, all of a sudden you turn, puberty, and you're in your teens, and then everything stops. And I used to hate that. My cousins, all my male cousins, they would go to these game shops, those arcade games, and they would play games up there. And I would be like, I want to go play the video games. This is going back when we didn't have video games. You had to
Yeah.
go to arcades and stuff. Or if you even going now, it's like in Pakistan, if you go to any of the cafes and stuff, you'll find mostly men. Or I'm talking about 10 years ago, because that's when I was back home. So I find that, in the West, at least we have progress, but I feel for the women that are back home, and they have no rights, especially like the ones that are in villages. And when I went back home and I saw those little kids like begging on the streets or selling things, it's just, what is their future? You just look at it and you feel so depressed. It was really sad. So I'm very lucky that we are here. And but yeah, no, back to the point that we've always been like this. And yes, Islam is scared because they see what is happening in the West. When the women get power, we can do whatever we want. The birth rate is declining, yes, because we're choosing to have less kids. Some of us don't want to have kids. Some of us want to focus on our lives. Some of us want to be successful. Some of us want to do something else. So we have our own choices to make now. And they do get scared of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I want to ask you guys, when do you think it to be possible that something like this would happen? Would it ever happen in our lifetime?
What, that women break out of Islam and see it for what it is?
Even if it's not only in Islam, the basic stereotype and things that hold us back. I think from the very get go, the girls in the school are made to think that they won't be smart in mathematics, or they wouldn't be doing well in certain fields, and this field is not for women, this is not
Yeah.
for women.
That's
And
why there's so few women in STEM and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder why, when would this ever end? And I would like to have your take on it, both of yours.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I know this is it's quite a pessimistic outlook, but when it comes to countries, especially countries like Afghanistan and even Pakistan at the moment, the way it's going, but because like we see like high profile celebrities internalizing misogyny and saying the most ludicrous things out loud, like clearly backing those Islamic principles of a wife is obedient and a husband is, some guy recently, I think it was in my show with Horace, someone said, that a woman should be worried when her husband's about to get a second wife, and she should, keep him like pleased and whatever. It's that kind of rhetoric in 2021 is honestly the weirdest thing to hear from people in the West when you're just not used to it. But yeah, in countries like Afghanistan, again, unless the people and like women especially, but when they support each other, but this is a lot easier said than done. This is like a grassroots kind of like revolution we're talking about, even from a woman's perspective. And until and unless you want that, like that bad yourselves, that you would, you know, push for your country to change, it's not gonna happen. There is still enough people in Afghanistan that do kind of low-key support the Taliban, and they do support Sharia. And the problem, I think the major problem is like there's a difference between like women empowerment in the West, because it's all well and good, like us here, we're fighting the patriarchy. You know, you fight for things like equal pay, you fight for maternity leave, paternity leave, you fight for things like this, you fight for women to be represented at the C-level of companies. These are different fights. But in countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan, you're fighting for like basic things like, can I go to school, as opposed to being sent off to work in this house for those little kids. And it's not until people are going to wake up in general and want a revolution, like from the ground up, that these things are going to change. And like I said, we have the oldest generation who's internalizing all of this misogyny and keeping the cultural and status quo as it is. So sadly, I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to see like Afghanistan flourish in the way, you know, it used to be, when women would go to universities and they were wearing whatever they wanted. And even at times when Pakistan was a lot more secular than it was, and women had more rights, at the moment, I just feel like it's one of the worst places in the world for women to be. So I'm not sure in terms of in our lifetime, but I think if it was to happen in our lifetime, there'd have to be an insanely accelerated like push for change. And women, the problem is a lot of women, like the three of us today, we can sit here and talk because we're all on the same page that when we talk about misogyny and patriarchy and the subjugation of women, we can see it for what it is in Islam, in the scriptures. But a lot of women would see all of that and just think it's like culture distorted, or culture being, you know, just fucked up culture. They don't make that link to Islam. And we can see it from, like, that's the root problem. So again, if you're like there's some women in the Afghanistan protest and they're fighting for their rights, but they were shouting, they were saying we have the right to education and we have the right to wear what we want, and they're shouting Allahu Akbar in the same sentence. And I was like, I really, really hope that they're just saying this for the sake of the Taliban, but their own Allah that they're chanting and calling out to is the same Allah that subjugated them and taken away their rights. So there is a big divide when it comes to giving culture like the buck and blaming problems on that, and then Islam in general. So again, people like us who actually push and like put the spotlight on Islam and say, look, you're not just subjugated because of bloody blah patriarchy, but this is what, you know, the Quran says, you're half of a man. Like, can we start from here, please? Like, that's when I think things will really, really change. But sadly, I don't think I'd live to see the fruits of that.
Yeah. Malij?
So you know what? I think the only way I think Islam is going to survive is like by control by Taliban. Like if there is the control like Taliban, then people are scared for their lives and they will not speak up about it. Because I think if, for example, tomorrow they took away the blasphemy law from Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Iran, you will find so many people that live there that don't believe in all this stuff. There's so many of them. You were talking
True.
about the celebrities. Those celebrities are just fake. Celebrities, politicians, they do everything. Most of them don't even believe in God. Okay, they party, they do everything back home because I've been there, I've seen it. But to pander to the society, to the poor or to the ones that are uneducated,
Yeah,
they
it's
want to
lip
keep that,
service.
oh yeah, they
Yeah.
want to pretend like, oh, we are the pious and God this and Allah that, because that's how they gain brownie points, right? So that's what Imran Khan is doing. So they're very hypocritical, and I find like most of the people that are in Islam are hypocrites. Like the whole religion is hypocrite, But I don't think a place like Afghanistan in our lifetime is going to change because it takes decades. Because a generation needs to be changed with a different mindset. It has to grow up with a different mindset. So it will take decades for it to change if they start changing from today. But now we see what is happening. So that's what I was talking about. That part of the world kind of is going backwards. Pakistan, on the other hand, is a different story. It's fighting. It's fighting in Pakistan. And within Pakistan, there's fights between the people that want to progress and then the people that are like really conservative. where people are progressing and getting very liberated. At the same time, I see the TLP and all these people also growing in numbers. So there is a fight. They're trying to fight up there too. In Pakistan, women can come out and they can protest. At least they have that much of a right. They do get a lot of pushback. Obviously, you've seen in the women's march and stuff. But in
Mhm.
Afghanistan, Iran, they can't even do that. They're in Iran. They'll just come grab you and then they'll throw you in jail. So it's difficult to say. I'm hoping the best for Pakistan, but let's see. If now that the Taliban's have come, you can see the Pakistani Taliban's are also getting they're not afraid. Like, they were quiet before, but now they're like, oh, inshallah, Taliban's are gonna Sharia is gonna come in Pakistan as well. And if it does, then yes, there is no hope for Pakistan. It's just going backwards. But I hope the people that are there have to fight for it. We can talk whatever we want, we can say whatever, we can do whatever, but the people on the ground, they have to fight for themselves.
I totally agree. But I think for me, with the information technology, moving so fast, information becoming so readily available, and every other person, whether they're educated or not, having a cell phone in their hand, it does give me hope that probably it will make them question things. If not, they might be looking at different stuff, and our reach is not that good, I admit. But still, I think it's not far fetched. I was looking at there was someone shared it on Twitter. In European countries, in Germany, there is like 40% of the population is atheist. So imagine if this would happen in anywhere in the world where religion is not the taking the main control of the population, and the people are not focused on religion only, and there's so much progress going on. There's education, and they are into information technology and so busy and other stuff that religion takes a back seat. That would be a hope. um, and that gives me the only I think the ray of hope that you can consider, because otherwise, as you guys rightly mentioned, if you look at Afghanistan, if you look at Pakistan even, and what pains me the most is, despite the ground level problems that exist in Pakistan, whether it's 11 women being raped per day, whether it's 8 children being, molested or abused per day, they don't care about these things. And yet their focus is not on poverty, not on other problems, not on the poor law and order system. Their whole focus is shifted somehow on religion, which is amazing. That just to have a better life once you're dead, which you're not sure of what will happen after death, yet you want to sacrifice what you have right now in the moment for that. It's mind boggling what faith can make you believe in. um, but as I said, information technology, education, and there are and more women speaking up, I think hopefully not in my lifetime, I'm sure of that, but probably soon after, there'd be time when people would at least not be in the run for holier than thou and all that. Hopefully there'd be a time of that.
Yeah.
Nuria, your were a lot Desi Neo is here. I'll add him to the stream. Let's see what he has to say. Desi Neo, welcome to the studio.
I There is nothing else I can say that you guys have not said. You guys are doing just an amazing job, and just didn't even get a chance to listen to the whole conversation. I was moving back and forth, but I'm gonna be going to pick up my kids. So on the drive, I'm gonna rewind this whole stream and listen to it again. It's just amazing to have like people like you, just like intellectually put the argument forward with like so concise information, and just like without getting emotional, just facts. This is how it is, this is on the ground reality of the situation. And put this forward to the people. It's so interesting that a lot of time we see all these like fights between ex-Muslim, Muslim, and this and that with too much contention. And when you guys come in and you speak from your own experiences, you get a totally different aspect of it, and you get a more appreciation of the struggles of people who have left the religion and apostatized, not only in Islam but in lots of other religion. They all share a commonality, the struggle that they have to go through, and like especially all the challenges being a female that you have to go through in Islam. It's multiplied so many times more, as opposed to I mean, people don't appreciate that who haven't really lived in that culture. From outside, you're like, oh, okay, so what's the big deal if a girl says she's not a Muslim or a guy says she's not a Muslim? Not a big deal. But you have to live in that culture to realize what a big disparity there is of rights for women and rights for men. So I really appreciate you guys doing what you are doing.
That's
Thank
really
you
sweet.
so much, Desi Neo. I'm glad you've popped the red pill, Neo.
I went with Desi Neo because the way I look at it is like I was in a pod, just like in the Matrix, and I woke up and I look around and everybody's still in the pod, and I'm like, realizing the reality of what really it is, and realizing you were in a pod all this time,
Yeah.
and then
And what this
questioning.
conversation is a glitch in the Matrix.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to the new Matrix 4, though. Actually, are you?
Yeah, I saw the trailer. It looked really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that series.
Yeah,
Hi,
well, we
Neil.
can
How are you?
tell.
I
Ali,
never understood that movie. When it came out, I was like, what is this? It went right over my head. Until later on, I was like, oh, okay.
no, that is one of my favorite movies, and I had to watch it like 2, 3 times to get the full picture of the whole storyline, how it actually works together. But just the
Same.
idea is just so groundbreaking for that time. Like nobody else had a movie like that, of
I know.
solipsism, and that we are all inside a matrix and all that. Nobody actually put it into a movie, but
Yeah.
it's a good way to actually give people, if you really want to explain somebody, what solipsism is, and you can't explain it through philosophy and all that, tell them, hey, it's like the
Watch the
matrix.
Matrix. Yeah,
Yeah.
True. Touche. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, though,
Mm.
honestly, for appreciating this conversation and appreciating what we're doing. It means a lot, especially when there's like men who are also backing our corner. I think it just, I mean, not that we need you guys, but it strengthens our cause.
No,
So,
definitely, and
thank
that's the whole point of me. Here we go. So Haris is here too. Hey, Haris, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good. I'm so happy. And Desi Neo, I don't know what you're doing here. This is a ladies' show. So, like after listening to you, I was like, okay, I better go in and show my support for these wonderful ladies as well. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Nuria. You actually don't need us. I think the time has come when you guys are going to create your own niche, and you not just a niche. It has to become mainstream, where you would inspire a whole group of women, this next generation of women who would come from all corners of the globe. Sorry, sorry for the lack of better term. I think it's a common word now, common phrase now. Corners of the globe. Um, yeah, so that is quite good to see that all you ladies are coming forward, and not just from Pakistani background. There's a whole Iranian diaspora of ex-Muslim atheist women. There are women coming out of Egypt. There are women coming out of other Middle Eastern countries who are just speaking up, basically talking, seeing how it is about Islam, saying how it is about Islam. So that's quite,
So, guys, the
like
revolution will
it's
not be
good.
televised. It will be YouTubeized.
Yeah. We're working
Yeah,
towards.
that's how it's going.
So I'll take my leave, but I'll rewind this and I'll start listening from the beginning because I missed
That.
portions of it. But good luck to all of you guys, and I'll keep
Thank you. Thank you.
whatever support that you guys need. We are always there for support.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So,
Yeah, I think I'll take my leave as well. That's all I wanted to say as well. Just wanted to, pay homage to the new queens of the next decade of this movement.
That's really kind. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Horace, for always having our
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
You're
yeah, thank
definitely on the
you.
right side of history, mate.
So there is Kundan Rathor. I,
S- Sultan, you were saying something before I got a call. You were talking about, how the technology is growing and people are listening to us and stuff. That will only change. Like I can see, yeah, in the West, it's changed completely and we are progressing. But in the other countries, like if the government doesn't give them that freedom, people can have that information and they will just stay atheist or they'll leave the religion, but they can't come out openly. It's like, you can't be openly gay in those countries till we
hmm,
have the system like the democracy and everybody has equal rights and there's no threat of being killed.
hmm,
So until as that happens, yes, the information is making a huge dent. There's
hmm,
people changing their minds every day, but are they able to come out openly in those countries? That's the problem. Right
hmm,
here, like the Christians, they don't really care. Now religion. That's why you see in Germany and other places, people can openly say we're atheists. They can actually mark it down. But in Pakistan, if you do a survey, most of them won't even say that they're atheists because they'll be very scared. So till we have these governments, like I keep mentioning Saudi Arabia, they're progressing. At least they're making an effort. So other countries also have to make that effort, and it's gonna have to come from the top, from the governments to change. But if you have people like Imran Khan who blames women, clothing for rape, that is kind of difficult.
I know, and it sets the whole narrative. I think for the whole nation. The new thing is the textbook covers that have women cover. Why the hell do you need a picture of a cartoon or a illustration of a family on an English textbook, I- if at all? And then you have the women covered in hijab and sitting on the ground, and whereas the men are dressed in you know mm, jeans or trousers and shirts. So what the hell are you trying to imply? I don't get that. If you want to have Islamic culture, then it should be for both. Stop putting women in a box. It's weird and it's unfair. Men can dress the whatever way they feel fit. They can go out, they can have extramarital affairs, they can do anything. All those movies and their videos that have come out, I mean, stop putting the burden on women. It's enough has been done. And Malij, you were talking about in Western countries they don't care much about the religion, but there was a point where they did, and it did affect a lot of women. They were burned, for heaven's sakes. I mean, that witch hunting and all that, it was quite scary if you read about it. So
Mm-hmm.
if they could change, I was Nathaniel Hawthorne, I suppose, the Letter. It's a novel, and if you read it, it's horrifying what the women had to go through. And so if they could change, I think there is a slight hope that everything around us would also change. And
I
um,
agree. I agree with you that it did happen here, but at least they did change. But for me, I find personally, I think Islam maybe before, because this niqab and stuff, I don't remember seeing that in Pakistan in the 70s. You didn't see that in Afghanistan, you didn't see that in Iran. So
agreed.
as we've come in the future, now you see hijab and niqab. It's they're going backwards. They were more, I think, liberal before than they are now. The Muslims from before, and again, it's a generation, and generations are changing, right? So
I,
I am skeptic in that sense. But yes, no, we did it. They did it here. Education is a big part of it. Let's see what happens. I am not hopeful.
if you look at this, the suffrage movement and how the women's voting thing happened, and how they were when they fought for it, and when they came out, they were prisoned, they were put behind bars, they were molested, they were harassed, they were sent death threats, and all that. And I see a ray of hope when I see that Aurat March in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a bold thing.
Yeah.
Imagine a country like that. So, so much in regression, and yet there's powerhouse of women who come out and they sing and they dance and they, have banners that are bold, and it drives the men crazy. I think it is going to change. I'm a little bit optimistic, probably, if not an optimistic fool, but I do think that there would be a, saturation point at which it has to tip. The scales have to tip because it has gone on for too long, and the oppression, there has to be a limit to it. You can't expect the women to keep on taking the crap and live with it in peace. This is not going to happen. So I do have certain hope with that.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. See, my only concern is, like even with the suffragette movement and stuff, this is more like because they were denied a right, like almost in a political sense, if you
Mm,
will. People, women, I'm just my own personal fear for women in general is that because this has been given, this is so nicely wrapped inside a sweet, which is Islam, that's going to stop them from breaking through that, because you can tell them, oh, you don't have the same rights as somebody at work, and you don't have the rights as somebody on a socio-political level, and they will go crazy and fight for that right until they can. But the second that you say this is a right that's taken away from you, and God, and this is what you like, this goes against what your God has told you, they
mm,
just resign all hope, and they just kind of go back and accept it for what it is, which is the scary part, because how that there's I mean, even as a Muslim, I believed, yes, sure, the Quran is from God. It's eternal, it's timeless, it's unchanged. I should believe every single word of it. But until you can break that like connection with, this is such a beautiful, mystical book and religion, you would even let your rights kind of be trampled on because you're not willing to push that boundary. It's when, like you said, I think the most beautiful thing that we have today is information technology and the internet at our fingertips, because I can honestly, hand on heart, say if I didn't have access to the internet, I probably still would have been a Muslim. I wouldn't have known what it is I know. I wouldn't
mm,
have found my outlet. I wouldn't know there's such things as ex-Muslims, and I wouldn't see actual native Arabic speakers telling me, listen, Daraba does not mean what your Malvi is telling you. It actually does mean beat. And I'm like, who do I believe? Who do I believe? But like at some point you just employ your own critical thought, and out of context and stuff, you look at the context by yourself, you see all the evidence in front of you, and then you make that jump to be like, I want nothing to do with religion. But a lot of women won't make that jump, and that's the problem, because they could be fighting for all their rights, but when religion still has a hold on you, you're not operating as a woman at your optimal. You are constantly, even if it's not so much, like I know a lot of Muslim women in England who wear hijab, but then they have arguments with their boyfriends like, oh, like when we cook iftar or iftari, like you should make half the food with me, right? Like they want this equal relationship and they're fighting for it so much. But what they don't understand is that it's so misogynistic to begin with, that what they're trying to employ is just like Western principles on what they think is a fair relationship. But they don't understand how much they're like missing out on with the fact that
mm,
you're wearing hijab in the first place. And what does your actual religion tell you? Your religion tells you to be obedient to your husband. So if he tells you to fry all the samosas, you should. Like, you shouldn't ask him to do half of it. But they're
mm,
kind of trying to find some middle ground here. But again, this is why I'm saying that the buck always stops with culture. Nobody goes back and says, wait, the Quran actually has a problem. And this problem, until we address the fact that the Quran is stifling us and our progress and our role in society, and essentially just wanting us to be mothers for more Muslim children to be born, you're
mm.
never going to address like the other issues unless you're in a Western country and you can fight for them through a different sphere. But in terms of like ground level revolutions we're talking about, like it's sad the fact that now it's 2021 and we're saying, why does a Pakistani textbook have a family sitting like that? Like,
Yeah,
this is ridiculous.
yeah, beats me.
Yeah.
We have two callers. I'll take. There's someone with the name Imran Tariq. Hi there.
Hello there, Salateen.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Hello there, Nuria.
Hi.
Hi, I'm so grateful that women are talking and women are able to be the people that they should be. And I think there's been a huge, like, for many years, lots of ex-Muslim men talking, but it's so important for women. What I feel like, I always think in my head, why hasn't the Muslim world progressed? Is because we've kept our women down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Simple.
Touche. Yeah.
Simple. And I think as soon as women start waking up from this basically 7th century cult, we will progress, you know?
Yeah.
And I see Stockholm syndrome within the women in my family, you know,
Yes.
that they keep, when I, I'm constantly having arguments with my siblings and aunties and even my mother to a certain extent, and they just don't get it. They're so brainwashed that I just have to say to myself, just have to let you people be, and I have to progress in my own life. I've realized that this religion has not been good for me in my life. I need to leave it behind. But it's so gratifying to see ladies like you. We need more women like you.
Well, can I
I'm
just say
just
right back at you, Imran, like the fact that you've realized the truth for what it was, and the fact that you're actually trying to engage in these conversations with your own, like, with the women family members that you have, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
if my brother had realized this truth and tried to free me from it, I wouldn't see it in the moment, of course. But I mean, what you're doing is very, very commendable, and I'm so grateful that you've realized the truth for what it is. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yes. I have a 13-year-old niece, and I don't want her to have a life that, say, my mother had or my sister had.
Mhm.
That life of servitude, and a life where they don't have a say, or where they are told to be quiet and not having an opinion when it comes to family matters and stuff to do with family. And yeah, and also I also went to the ex-Muslim council that used to run in Brumistan. I'm in Birmingham,
Right.
and it stopped from, as soon as I started going, COVID happened and what have you, and Sadia stopped running it. But I'm
Mhm.
hoping that someone will start running it. It's in the West Midlands area. So because I know a couple of ex-Muslims, friends that I've made through Instagram, believe it or not, and we would like a safe place to go. But I was thinking of emailing, what's his name, Ali.
Ali Malik?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That
Yeah,
if
I
we could
think,
arrange something in Birmingham, you know.
yeah, sure. Also, can you do me a favor? Could you shoot me an email at holyhumanist@gmail.com? It's on my YouTube channel. It's in like the video descriptions, because
Okay,
I
okay.
can connect you with the Midlands WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group as well. They're usually organizing events, and then people are also just kind of linking up separately. But
Okay.
there's a whole group for the Midlands and Birmingham as well. So do shoot me an email, and I'll get you included in that
Okay,
group. Yeah.
I followed you on YouTube, so that'll be easy for me to go and do that. But yeah, I think I'm so delighted that younger generation of women are realizing that Islam is such a big problem, not just for us, but actually for the world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
and the work you guys are doing is amazing. I just wanted to say that, and I'll say a thank you as well. But I'm continuing myself, educating myself, making myself more wiser. And I did feel when you said at the very beginning of when you were talking that I do feel like I was lied to as well. With all these things I'm learning now, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why didn't they tell you these things? But that goes against the narrative, I think. And then
100%. They feed
when
you
they,
half truths,
yes, yes, and
Yeah.
when people start hearing the truth, they will, which they find out themselves. And I think slowly, people are leaving. And one thing I wanted to say to my lead as well, there is a progression towards a lot more people becoming ex-Muslim, and it's all to do with information. As like, even if they can't be vocally ex-Muslim, they are ex-Muslim. They will find it um, easier to not fall into those brainwashing things that the Molvi tells you or the state tells you. But yeah. But anyway, I'm going to take my leave. I've spoken too much, but thank you so much. Thank you, Salateen. Thank you,
Thank you,
Nuria.
Imran. Keep on
I
coming.
know.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Mahlij.
Hi,
You know what, Mahlij, so many times I watch your channel and I'm having the most shittest day, and your live streams just
Cracks
make
up.
me so happy that I crack up and I'm laughing and I'm thinking, thank goodness for Mahlij. But thank you so much, guys, and lovely talking to you. Take care now. Bye
thank
Thank
you
bye.
so
you.
much,
Thank
Imran.
you.
Okay, bye. I know
We
with
have
everything going on with the whole thing, it gets so depressing. So at least, I try to make others laugh and I make myself laugh too when I talk to some of these goons that come on there to talk about it. It's just like, where do you come up with this? Sorry, I have like little work going on, so I keep getting phone calls
no
that come
worries.
in and out.
There's someone by the name of Gustave Bakra. I don't know what he
Okay.
has to say. Hi there. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. I
Hi.
would not say my name, and
Yeah.
I just want to add a small comedy story of my when I entered the UK illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
okay.
so yeah, so it was me and my friend. His name was Hassan Khan.
Okay.
We entered Northern Ireland. Okay, and we were Muslim back then. And I said we went to the airport, and I could speak very little English because we were not educated. So I went to the airport, me and Hassan Khan, and I said we were gonna buy ticket, EasyJet ticket to London. And the girl, the
Yeah.
lady, she said to me, "What's your surname?" I said to Hassan Khan, I said, Hassan Khana, I think these people, the head has a different name. Sir means in our language, head, and the rest of the body is a different. So I said to Hassan Khana, it's a very strange country. Here, the head have a different name, and the rest of the body have a different name. And Hassan Khan said to me, just say your full name. And I said, this Khan. And the lady said, oh, Khan, that's your surname. I said to Hassan Khana, today we learned something new. My first day, and Sir always say Khan. The rest of the body is your body name is Hassan. Surname is Khan. So that was our first thing I learned in English. And one
Sir,
other
do you
thing.
have any question for Nuria?
Nice to see England. In England, people like Nuria raise her voice and say something about Islamic fake stories.
And I have
I
the
don't have.
same sir name as your friend.
Yes. I know. I saw that.
That's that's
So
the name
yeah.
of my sir. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, nice to see more and more women just standing up against this thing. And more thing I would add, then I will leave. That when I am gustach, okay, like they call us gustach Rasul and kafir. In my family, we are from a very strict family, and all of them hates me, all family members. But the one person who was standing with me was my mother, and my sisters are they don't care what I think, what I believe, what I say. They're still talking to me. I mean, I still feel that's good. At least they don't care. I remember my mother used to, one day she was telling me some Arab stories. Oh, this alayhi salam was in the fish, inside the fish, and blah blah blah. And I said to my mother, I said, you know what, mother, the Ram Bhagwan and his son was hang on, what's his, I don't know what his name, I don't remember now. And I said one day he ate some mud, and his mother said to him, open, throw it out from your mouth. And when this Bhagwan opened his mouth, the mother saw all universe in his mouth. My mother said, what bakwas are you talking about? I said,
It's the same
mom,
because.
Mom, I said, Mom, the thing you just told me about Arab stories, I think the same about I mean, I can understand what you think about me. But even then, she had a doubt. But even then, she never left me. Okay. So and one more thing, coming out with the face, it's a very difficult world. And good luck in the UK, because I cannot go to some cities in the UK. I don't feel safe.
Yeah,
No,
no,
I think it's,
definitely don't go to those cities in the UK,
yeah.
because I also don't go there. Like I just won't. It's not safe for people like you or me. So definitely don't do that. I'm very aware of my safety, and yeah, no, I do as much as possible to keep myself safe and things private that should not be out there. But I appreciate what you're saying. Thank you so much. And
Thank
stay
Finally,
you.
one
safe
more thing.
yourself. Yeah.
Finally, one more thing I will add, okay? One day I was walking in Manchester and
Mm-hmm.
I saw these two girls fully niqab, all right?
Mm.
So me and my missus, we were walking, and I said, when I saw these two girls, I was so angry. Okay, why are you wearing this in this country? And I said, Allahu Akbar. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
one of them looked at us and looking angry. My missus
Mm-hmm.
said, please ignore, ignore. And I said again, I said, Allahu Akbar. Okay. And she come, what did you say? I said, so Allahu Akbar, is nothing wrong here. And they were gonna fight with me. And I said, you will fight for what? Allahu
Yeah.
Akbar. Yeah, I said, Allahu Akbar means it's a nice thing. You wanna fight? Come on,
Yeah.
fight. So
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't say, like, subhanallah or like anything. Just I don't know why
no,
that
no,
would
no.
make them angry.
Subhanallah is something I will like bashing somebody, or I'm trying to make them angry.
Then you.
Allahu Akbar means you're gonna blow up yourself. So
Oh, that's what you were trying to tell them
Yeah.
there, insinuate.
that's what I meant with a full
Oh
niqab. With a
God.
full niqab,
Okay.
okay, I
Yeah.
don't like that full niqab in this country. Okay,
Yeah.
so nice to see Sultan Salateen channel. I so it was I just see it recently, so I just couldn't stop myself to enter a little bit, and I don't want to go some more personal stuff.
Yeah,
So
please keep
thank you,
your
thank you.
safety first, and keep yourself safe, please.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And please check out the Council of Ex-Muslims Britain, since you are here. And hopefully we'll see you at some point.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a nice evening. We also have Gulzar Elia. Gulzar, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gulzar.
Okay, hi. The guy who came, I know him, and I was enjoying his conversation. So, hi, how are you, Nuria Khan?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I have rapid fire questions. Questions are a
Yeah,
very short
Gulzar,
question.
Gulzar,
Huh?
can you give me 1 second? I just want to tell Salatin something, and then you can ask your question. Salatin, you were sorry before I got cut off. You were talking about women that come out for Women's March in Pakistan and stuff. Don't forget, what was her name? Gulzar can probably help me out with it. She died.
The Minari Pakistan death?
No. There
Narga?
was this woman that died a couple of years ago. She was a huge advocate for women's rights. Um,
Gilani.
huh?
Gilani, what was her name?
No, Gulzar
She
क्या
was
नाम
from
था?
Karachi?
हाँ, Karachi. She died. She used to work with that other guy that is
Sabine Mahmood.
who?
Sabine Mahmood?
No, no, yeah. She's from like Marvi Sarmad's group. She was a lawyer. I can't remember her name. But anyways, so Marvi Sarmad, when they went to bury her, these women carried her on their shoulders. They went to the graveyard because women are not supposed to do that. But they broke all those barriers and they went against everyone, and they got bashed big time. But at the end of the day, even though these women are doing that, they will be very liberal. But if you go and swear or say something about Muhammad to them, some of them will react against you. Even though they do want their rights and they're doing whatever they can. I'm not talking about Marvi Sarmad or whoever, but there are some that will believe in getting their rights. At the same time, if you talk against their religion, they will believe in also killing you. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to
but
mention.
let's take one step. Even if you think from um, conservative women's point of view, who doesn't believe in women's rights? Who would judge you on your dressing? Who would judge you on smoking? Who would judge you on drinking? On
That's true.
stepping out of the house? to this, I think still it's a progress. I've worked
Mhm.
in Pakistan and I've been surrounded by women who were educated and who were liberal. They came from affluent families. I have to give it to them. But
Yeah.
but you still see that they are pretty much aware and they don't want to stay silent, and they are working towards it. Although in
Oh
public you have to keep a persona. You can't just
yeah.
openly
Mhm.
talk about it in Pakistan because anyone can, put a tag on you and get you killed. They might have want to have an affair with you, and you just have, denied them
Oh
that, and they could accuse you of blasphemy or being anti-Muslim or something like that. And so people are very careful and they watch behind their back. So that's also there. But I still think, see, I know what you're getting at. That there's
yeah. They are
like
progressing. I
forward
agree
and
with
two
you.
steps back.
Sorry.
It's like one step forward, two steps back. That's what you're talking about when it comes
Yeah,
to.
like they are. If you go back, like before, before Musharraf came, women, the whole he changed a lot of things for women. He gave them media, like the media. There was only like two TV stations at that time, so they've gotten some freedom, and then the internet came. So there is people, and there is the younger generation that's thirsty right now because you have to understand the population of Pakistan is mostly young people. It's all young people, and some of them are totally liberal. If you even look at the people that come on our calls, a
Hmm.
lot of them are in their 20s. I'm shocked. Like some of them are in their teens, and I'm like, I didn't even care about religion in my teens. But then again, I came from a family that was liberal, but so to see that it's good too. That kid that comes on Ghalib's show, he's a future atheist. We all know that.
Yeah. No, I have that hope. Seriously, but there are so many people who come on Haris and Khalib's channel, and
Mhm.
they have changed, and
Oh
it
yeah,
gives me great hope. So
yeah.
we need more women like that also, and that would change the whole generations that are in future to come. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
hope. Let's hope
I
that
think we
what we're
got the
doing.
message, Salatin. It was Asma Jahangir that
Yeah.
Asma Jahangir, हाँ.
Malij. Okay.
Asma Jahangir, yes.
So Gulzar, shoot away your questions.
I have rapid fire questions. Just it will be very speedy questions, and I believe that Noria will be able to answer rapidly. My
It's like
first
coffee with
question,
Karan.
yes, that's we are going to
Let's
play
go.
Karorpati, okay? You're going to play with Amitabh Bachchan,
Okay.
atheist Amitabh Bachchan.
But I
My
don't get a million at the end of it, sadly. But
You
okay,
will
let's
just
play.
get $5 super chat, that's all,
Okay.
and I will send you.
Okay, let's
So my
go.
first question, I was born in Muslim family, and I found three biggest jokes with reference to Islam, which I found. The first biggest joke is Islam gives the rights to women. First joke. Second joke is that Islam is the religion of nature, like the Deen Fitrat. Since I was born, I was being, forced to hear that. Third biggest joke is Islam is the religion of peace. And these three jokes are not taken seriously by the Muslims. But what do you think? Which jokes you have about Islam? Then I will come to the second question.
I'm with you on the Islam is a religion of peace. I think that's the biggest joke. Like, why do we even talk about ISIS and Al Qaeda and Taliban and suicide bombings and like violence against women if it's a religion of peace? Like, I think religion of pieces describes it much more aptly. That's definitely one of the biggest jokes. I think Islam is equates to feminism is the second biggest joke. Like we've all heard it now. It's like turkeys wanting Christmas to come early. It's like, chickens wanting to have KFC's profits increase. Like that's Islam and feminism in a nutshell. I think those are the two, and Deen Fitrat as well. I mean that's you can make so many arguments against that because what is Islam doing? It's actually taking a woman from her most natural, unique situation and almost enclosing her in this, in this black covering to be kept indoors, kept away from the sunlight, kept away from interacting with society. Those are the biggest jokes, in my opinion. But your three jokes are perfect. They cover
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Now, my second question will be, you have lived in Abu Dhabi, right? A Middle East country.
In Dubai,
And
yes.
in Dubai. and you might have met the real Arabic people. And what difference did you find in terms of religion in Pakistani Muslims and Arabic Muslims?
That's a really, really, really good question, actually, because I actually haven't thought about that much. But I would say when it comes to Saudi and Emirati men, their religion for them is just more of a front. So they will do, I mean, but same with Pakistani men, like, it is more just kind of affiliating with it rather than adhering to all the limits, because especially men in Dubai, Emirati men, they drink, they do whatever it is they want to do. But I would say Pakistani men actually would take their religion a bit more seriously. And as much as I've seen in the Gulf, in terms of men, the richer you are, the more it's just kind of like, one of your things, but you don't let Islam rule your life. I think in in the Pakistani culture, religion means a bit more in the sense that you would always want to be seen to be like the most pious that you could be, whereas Emiratis don't really care. They've got money, they've got stature, they've got status, they've got their government protecting them, so they like to drive fast cars, they like to date women from different cultures, they like to drink, they'll do it in their kundura. They won't even change into Western clothes. They're like, whatever, you're in my country,
They might be
this
wearing jeans underneath it. That's
so
different.
sorry.
They might be wearing jeans underneath it.
yeah, they might be. You never know. Exactly.
Okay, and third question will be, how did you find Haris Sultan channel? Because I saw you first time when you came in English channel, and then I realized that how brave you are. So that was just coincidence, or somebody told you about his channel?
Yeah. Again, really good question. So what happened was I was actually
I've been
like on
making
my
questions since morning.
really, you've done a good job. It was a day well spent.
Yeah, I'm jobless.
Yeah, so am I at the moment. It's good. I can make questions for the next stream this detailed, because no, really,
I
really
left
good
Islam
question.
because I was jobless, so I had time.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry, I was just doing my own research into Islam, obviously, and like I said, I really, really wanted to, before I explored any other channels, I just had certain questions that I needed answering, and I couldn't take the words of imams or sheikhs or maulvis anymore, and I didn't want to take the just Western documents or whatever people have written about Islam. So I actually was like, who is a good middleman? And it was just it was YouTubers who come from a native Arabic background. So I looked into them, and then obviously I had a lot of concerns about, like, I am from a Pakistani background, and we talk a lot about what's happening there. So when I was like, oh, is there anybody, because that's still more far removed, I don't really connect with people who speak Arabic as a native language like that well. I've lived in the Middle East for a long time, and I understand quite a lot of Arabic, and I understand their culture, and I do feel like I have a lot of my life was like growing up in the Middle East, so I have a strong connection to the Arab world. But again, like, I still care about what's happening on the ground level in Pakistan. And then I found Haris, who was actually speaking from an ex-Muslim point of view, but then also not like constantly hammering on about being ex-Muslim, but actually being like, wait, we've got issues here with minorities in Pakistan, we've got issues with these things, and he was calling those out. So I was like really, really drawn to that channel in general. And then I started watching him, and I realized, you know what, like, I'm sitting here so comfortably in England, like, maybe because I saw him, like, he was actually making pleas on his channel as well, that like, we have a lot of ex-Muslim men, but if there's women who come out and tell their story, that would, like, be a game changer for a lot of other women who are potentially maybe scared to come out or something stopping them. And I was like, you know what, like, it was a shot in the dark. I literally just messaged Haris my story. I was like, listen, I was in the UAE, they put the Sharia law on me, they tried to keep me hostage, mate. I don't know if you want your people to know about it, but I'm more than willing to talk about it. And he actually was like kind enough to respond to my story and be like, wow, you've actually been through shit, like definitely come on my channel and tell your story. And then I realized, okay, yeah, even my Urdu is not that great, but I'd rather get it out there than not have it out there, because like people don't even know that you can be screwed over in modern GCC progressive nations by archaic ancient Sharia laws the way I didn't know this was a possibility. So yeah, I felt like it was just kind of it was a duty almost for me to tell my story. And obviously Haris gave me a platform for that, and I'll be eternally grateful. If I could even tell one woman that before you sign the nikah, make sure you have the clause for divorce, or make sure that, you know, your husband will never employ this this Sharia law to trap you in the Middle East. If it can even help one woman think twice before she signs that document, then you know, it's been worth it. But yeah, that's basically how I came across and stumbled into this whole sphere.
Okay, I have just two more questions. Otherwise, Sultan Salateen can zip my mouth. She has stick to make me
I have
shut up.
something to share. I have something to share. So
Sure.
since she was mentioning that, so about divorce and stuff. So there was this case in US, I don't know, I think it was in Texas, where this guy got married to this woman and he got a prenuptial agreement signed by her. And that prenuptial agreement said that whenever he divorces her, she has to go through Sharia court. And the court upheld that prenuptial agreement. And she was fighting. She's like, it's my right, as like my human right. But you know, if you do a prenuptial agreement, you're kind of messed up. So see how smart these people are, that if to force them into that, it was just, I was like, genius. Seriously, to be honest, that's what would you say to that? Go ahead, Sultan.
Yeah, for
Yes.
driving.
Yes. So you went to one of ex-Muslim Indian channels, I think last month, and you were asked a question about Sanatan Dharam or Hindu religion, and you answered very logically, and we were expecting that you would not come into the trap of Hindutva group, and you answered them that I will accept anything which is scientifically logical and proven. So that time I realized that you have very rational mind. So thank you for that. So how are you going to cope up with that IT cell attack in your channel in the future? Because we are victims, we have gone through what happens when ex-Muslims come up and they try to bring the peace in the world and to change, to educate the Muslims that Hindutva from India, not everybody, but small segment, I would say, small section of Indian, they are extremists. They try to they try to take your studio, like if you open, everybody will come onto a channel and will try to divert your program. So how are you going to cope up if other people try to sell their dogma? What is in your mind?
Yeah, again, great question. It's definitely been working since the morning. I would just honestly, I first of all, I'm grateful that you know, I have like people like all of you guys to kind of learn from and rely on and see the experiences that you've gone through, so I can learn from, you know, what happens when these people try and like hijack or take over or kind of give your activism a different voice that might not necessarily be representative of what your actual personal opinions and views are, which is why I've said from the outset, like I can categorically say that I am not inclined towards Hinduism. I don't believe in it even for a second, and I inherently believe all religions are misogynistic. But also at the same time, like I don't feel qualified to speak about Hinduism like the way I can speak about certain things in Islam, because they're way more closer to my personal experience. But yeah, I mean, it's so weird because I have so many friends from when I lived in Saudi and the UAE that are Indian and that are Hindu, and they are just some of the most amazing, incredible people. And even when I was a Muslim, we never had, you know, any issues. We kind of just coexisted. They would never say anything against Islam and vice versa. And even now when I'm speaking about it, and even when I say things like, oh, I don't believe in Hinduism, I think that's also inherently misogynistic. It's got some, you know, if I don't believe the prophet flew up on a barak, I also don't believe that, like, you know, Hanuman has like a giant footprint somewhere. Like, I don't believe this. So yeah, I just constantly I won't give them the benefit of the doubt in a way. I think that's what a lot of people assume, that if you start bashing or talking about Islam, that you're somehow susceptible to. I get so many messages on the daily saying, oh, Nuria, have you thought about Christianity? Because so much of what you say is so Christ inspired. And I'm like, yeah, no, what I say is just human inspired. You know, I'm not gonna get sucked into any dogma left, right, or center. For me, like, the biggest thing was moving myself away from dogma. The last thing I'm gonna do is attach onto one, especially one that has such, insane, extraordinary, cosmological, supernatural claims for itself.
Yeah.
And then such things as, the whole cow urine debate that's been going on. Like, I just don't want to get involved in any of this. My activism and my channel is a platform, which is why I said I'm not going to accept bigotry. It's all about intellectual honesty. The moment you come and start spewing things about your religion or why it's the greatest or whatever, I will just clock you off that channel, because it's there for you to engage, have disagreeing opinions, but nobody's trying to convert anyone to their own religion here. We're just talking about hardcore ground facts that we know. And, you're in a Socratic way. As soon as this army comes through, I will handle it. But I hope that so far my saying that intellectual honesty, rationality, logic, no bigotry, all of these things, at least keep them at bay, because I'm not going to tolerate it on my channel. I won't tolerate it when I do live streams. I just won't tolerate the propagation of any of those other religions, to be honest.
By the way, Nuria,
Okay.
I went through the same thing when people found out here that I was an atheist. I got approached by a lot of at least 3 or 4 people that I got to know through other people, that approached me and wrote me so long emails and telling me and convincing me that the Muslim God is like that. The Christian God
He will save you.
will save you. He's much more kinder, and he is like this, and he's all the more accepting, and he's more loving, and you should convert to that. And I was like, no, thank you. The same rule applies everywhere. Sundar, any other questions?
I think my last question, but before I go asking last question, I would say, Nuria Khan, if the women come like you, I hope that there'll be positive changes as you are showing the face. See, I'm not showing my face. And I found Haris Sultan, I found Haris in very holy month, Ramadan. Few years ago, when Haris was not doing many streams, and he was talking about Ramadan problems in Pakistan, I said, this guy is talking from my heart. So there is someone who then can think like me. And then I fell in love with that guy, and he's doing excellent job. And my wife saw, and she said, oh, he's Qadiani. So I said, no, he's not Qadiani. He's not Ahmadi. He's ex-Muslim. So that's another problem, that when you and my wife is rational now. She keeps listening to you. So, but as apart from the joke, what happens when you criticize Islam? Muslims first label you as Qadiani or Ahmadi. Even I don't know who Ahmadi is. So I will leave on the note that Salateen, you, Mahalij, and Label, these women are pure rational, and we have 100% trust that they won't sell their consciousness, and they will keep working hard for the women, because those women who are in the house, they cannot speak. You are speaking on behalf of them. And when you sleep, you get the very good sleep like a baby, because you feel that you came to this world for some purpose, because most of women are busy in praying namaz. They don't know what precious time. Like my sister went for etikaf. She did chugli, she did ghibate for whole life about me, and then she went to etikaf without asking maafi from me. So this is the attitude of women, that they don't realize what is the real humanity. And my last question will be, see how fluent English I can speak, even though I'm from Pakistan, but my English is really good. I speak like a queen English,
It's
and you're not
brilliant.
laughing. It means I'm making bad jokes. Oh, thank you. So my last question will be, what is your favorite book? And thank you so much, Sultan, for giving me platform. Thank you.
You're welcome, Gulzar.
Your favorite book?
To be honest, it's not really my favorite ever, but in my favorite when I was going through the whole process of kind of understanding Islam, has got to be Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, just because I had missed when I was growing up in Saudi. Believe it or not, our textbooks with evolution and stuff were just kind of blacked out. So I was going through this whole phase of, is Islam the truth or not? And I was watching documentaries and stuff to find evidence to the contrary. But the way that book kind of just grounded me and filled in all these gaps, which my Muslim mind would tell me is God, but I just saw it from a perspective which I was like, okay, this is breaking down all of human history from the beginning till today, and going through, like, just how we've evolved as a species, not even from, like, biological evolution, but also in the fact, like, in the way we conduct warfare and why we do certain things and why we became why we went from being nomadic to being settled, and all of these things. Just literally reading about human history took God out of the equation for me. So it's not my favorite book ever, because that changes on a monthly or couple of months basis. But in terms of this conversation, I can tell that book really, really did open my eyes.
Gulzar, any other thing that you want to add? Then we'll take.
Oh, no, I can speak only this English. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And your English is perfect. Don't worry about it.
Okay, Gulzar, thanks a lot. There's someone by the name of Kundan Rathore. I will take you. Please keep your question ready, and then we'll have to take a leave. Hello there.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. What do you have to say, Kundan?
Ma'am, actually, can I speak Hindi?
Okay.
Okay. Hello, Malish ma'am, आप कैसे हो?
Malish is on mute. What do you have to say?
Okay.
जी मैं ठीक हूँ, thank you.
हाँ, मैंने इससे पहले भी मैडम से बात किया है। मैम, आपका करेज नाम मैं सल्यूट करता हूँ हर बार। काश
Thank you.
आपके जैसा करेज सब में होता। एंड ऑल गाइज आर वेरी करेज, एंड क्या बोलूँ मैं आप सबको। बट मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था मैम, जो कोई भी रिलीजन होता है, सबकी अपनी अपनी कुछ खासियत होती है, और सब चाहते हैं कि अपने रिलीजन को ज़्यादा प्रूव करना चाहते हैं अकॉर्डिंग टू रैशनैलिटी, मोरालिटी, ह्यूमैनिटी जैसी कुछ चीज़ें बताते हैं। बट एक्चुअली वो तो एक दूसरे को ब्लेम ही करते रहते हैं ना मैम।
आपका क्वेश्चन क्या
तो
है?
इसमें हाँ, तो रैशनैलिटी तो उसमें कुछ होता नहीं ना मैम, चाहे कोई भी रिलीजन हो।
आपको
आप
लगता है
किससे
religion
बात
में-
कर रहे हैं एग्जैक्टली? इज इट टू
हाँ,
यू?
सलातीन मैम से
Malish.
बात कर रहा हूँ मैम।
जी
अच्छा।
जी, आप कह रहे हैं कि रिलीजन में रैशनल नहीं होता तो हम ब्लेम गेम खेल रहे हैं।
हाँ, ऐसे ही तो होता है मैम रिलीजन। तो ये सब कुछ बैन बंद क्यों नहीं होता है सब? सारे लोग रैशनल क्यों नहीं होते मैम आप लोगों की तरह?
I think ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि एक दूसरे अपनी रिलीजन को प्रूव करने के लिए they have to bash the other religion.
I
दूसरी
know.
रिलीजन
Yes.
को करना पड़ता है, मगर again that's the difference ना, कि अगर जिसके पास कॉमन सेंस होगी उसको ये दिख जाएगा कि एक चीज ऐसी है तो सारी ही ऐसी ही होंगी, और जब दिख जाता है लोगों को then it opens up their eyes. और फिर आप ये भी मत भूलो कि ये रिलीजन जो है पॉलिटिकली जो है यूज हुई है हमेशा से, तो अगर ये खत्म कर देंगे तो पॉलिटिशियंस के पास रह क्या जाएगा लड़ाने के लिए?
जी मैम,
Also there's the issue.
ये सबसे बड़ा क्वेश्चन है। बिल्कुल, ये पॉलिटिशियंस लोगों की वजह से ही रिलीजन की दुकानें चलती है मैम।
बिल्कुल। और ये इसमें डोंट फॉरगेट दैट कि सिर्फ वो रिलीजन पॉलिटिकल उसके एम्बिशंस तो हैं ही हैं, अब रिलीजन इटसेल्फ हैज बिकम अ पॉलिटिक्स। इतना ऑर्गेनाइज हो चुका है, इतना वो सिस्टमैटिक है कि इट 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 इज रनिंग अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स। मतलब अगर आप देखो कि वो ये वेटिकन की आप प्रॉपर्टीज देख लो कि कैसी हैं एंड हाउ दे आर कंट्रोलिंग द थिंग्स। एंड इसी तरह ये आप मुसलमानों की ये जो मस्जिदें बन रही हैं हर जगह, इट इज नॉट ओनली पॉलिटिक्स, इट्स अ मनी गेम नाउ आल्सो। सो
जी मैम।
जहाँ पे भी पैसे इन्वॉल्व होंगे वहां पे देयर बी स्टेक्स टू लूज। सो दैट्स इन माय ओपिनियन, until and unless the masses are educated and they are aware, it's hard for things to change. Any other thing that you have to add?
मैम, मैं यही कहना चाहता था, बड़े बड़े डॉक्टर्स को देखा है मैंने, वो ऑपरेशन से पहले ना वो गॉड की पूजा करके जाते हैं मैम। तो उनका माइंडसेट कैसा होगा मैम? इतने इतने कम, मतलब वो तो अच्छे खासे एजुकेटेड है ना मैम।
But I don't have anything against if person is doing anything for themselves. for their self-confidence or rituals, or as far as it's only involving their own self. I have a huge problem when it involves other people, when it is
But
affecting
ma'am,
other people.
they read all about evolution and all. Have they do like this?
I know, I understand where you're coming from, but again, if we don't want people to, you know, uh, decide for us that we shouldn't be living another religion, then we also don't have the right to say to other people how they should be living their life. But their rights stop where the other person is involved. अगर वो किसी औरत पे गलत, उसके साथ गलत कर रहा है, उसको सब्जुगेट कर रहा है, उसके साथ बुरा कर रहा है, वो अपनी बीवी बच्चों को वो कह रहा है कि इस हिसाब से तुमने जिंदगी गुजारनी है, तुमने इस तरह से रहना है, मैं तुम्हें मार सकता हूँ और ये कर सकता हूँ. फॉर एग्जाम्पल there might be वो जो फास्टिंग के रिचुअल्स हैं हिंदुइज्म में भी, that the women have
जी,
to fast for the husband. इस तरह के रिचुअल्स हैं जिसमें आपको फोर्स किया जा रहा है या आपको शेम किया जा रहा है because you're not following it. Then I have a
yes,
huge
ma'am.
problem with that. मगर अगर आपके self confidence के लिए, if you find peace with it, all the more power to you. But the religions would only leave us जब हम अपने आप को morally और मतलब क्या कह सकते हैं, अपने आप को enlighten करेंगे. Not only we, the religions were made in a time where it was a need to, you know, organize people. As soon as that need
जी,
is done with and we are educated enough and we are, you know, enlightened enough, I think it would leave us. That is my
बेसिकली मेरा क्वेश्चन यही था मैम कि काफी सारे लोग वेल एजुकेटेड होने के बावजूद हालांकि वो जानते हैं कि असल में सच्चाई क्या है कोई भी रिलीजन की, बट वो नहीं चाहते कि बाकी लोगों को भी एनलाइनमेंट करके थोड़ा रिलीजन को साइड में रखना चाहिए. वो भी जानबूझ के रिलीजन की कुछ ऐसी बातों फॉलो करते हैं मैम जो बिल्कुल ह्यूमैनिटी के खिलाफ जाती है. इवन मैं वेल एजुकेटेड लोगों की बातें कर रहा हूँ मैम. मैंने देखा है काफी सारे लोगों को. मैं यही कहना चाहता था मैम कि आप जैसे सभी लोग ऐसे रैशनल कब होंगे?
I hope जल्द होंगे. That's all we can hope for. आप जैसे लोग जुड़ेंगे तो we hopefully और भी लोग जुड़ेंगे and they will also try and change things around us. Thank you very much, Kundan. I'll
Thank you
take
मैम.
my
I'm
now.
really appreciate your all guys. Thank you very much.
That's very kind of you. That's very
Thank you.
sweet. Thank you.
Okay.
So, last words, Nuria. What do you hope in the next 5 years to happen? What do you? What are your? How would you want first realistically and then ambitiously? What do you hope the world to be like in the next 5 years for the Muslim women?
Um, Realistically, I would hope, like you're saying, just jumping on the bandwagon of what you're saying about information. That again, we've heard this so many times, but honestly, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. It's not enough to just wear hijab and think you're doing your duty. Like, actually take a minute to look and read why you are. I would basically urge Muslim women to, like, listen. If you even listen to a fraction of what we're saying, if you don't believe us, that's fine. That's all well and good. But just for a split second, think about, like, genuinely what Islam offers you in this life, in the next life, your position, your marital status, your right to divorce, lack of divorce, your inheritance, your everything, and just think about yourself in the 21st century, in this day and age, because a lot of the time we give a free pass to so much of Islam because it happened back in the day. So then just honestly critically examine and think if you're willing to let those things apply to you in this day and age. And I can tell you most women don't. Like I hinted at those British Muslim women who are wearing hijab, but then they expect their husbands to, you know, like they expect to live their life like Western feminists, but with hijab. It's a complete contradiction, but you're going to have to look at things which really, really might hurt your sensitivities. They might challenge your very foundations of life, your moral compass, everything you hold to be true. Yes, you might be extremely disappointed, depressed, even maybe bitter, maybe angry, but at least you'll set yourself free from the constraints that Islam puts on you. And even if you don't want to free yourself from the constraints of Islam, at least understand where Islam places you. And then if you're happy to, who are we to stop you? We're not here to really force anyone to leave Islam. We're just here to voice what we think Islam does to women. And if you want to hear us and listen to it and go and check the sources for yourself, then that's all well and good. But so realistically, I think if women were to just make use of the internet, I know a lot of the women who have just been listening to me said, even if they're not willing to leave Islam behind, they just message me like full on thank you messages for how grateful they are that I've just made them turn back towards their books and for them to just look into it and question more, because they've had certain issues or seeds of doubt which they've just pushed to the back of their mind. But when I'm actually calling out sources for what they are, they actually can't deny it and they have to confront it. So I think realistically would be people should make use and maximize the use of information that we have. And the more we all speak and we get together like we have today, and we're just constantly just putting information like this out there, the easier it is for these people to access and come across us and realize that they are not just an anomaly in society. Because I thought I was one of the only ex-Muslims when I realized I left it behind. But to imagine to have like Mahlija's channel, to have your channel to rely on, it would just give me that boost that I would need, that I'm not crazy. There's people out there who think like me. And second of all, I would say, no matter whatever your situation is, whichever country you're living in, is to fight for your right to education, because that is a basic fundamental human right. And second of all, once you learn to think critically, and B, you have an education where that can take you somewhere in life, and you're not you're not relying on a man to take care of you or kind of plan out your life for you or make decisions for you. You are definitely in a position of power. So my message always to women is to read their own scripture, read your religion, understand why you're wearing hijab if you are wearing it. I'm not here to stop you wearing it. If you want to, it's your choice. I just want to have a discussion with you that if I say, oh, you know why you wear that? You can tell me, oh yeah, it was basically because, so we wouldn't get recognized and abused, and so we'd be known as the believing woman from the, at least know that, and then we can take it from there. But at least understand these very fundamentals. And then educate yourselves, because I think as soon as you educate yourself, you will even your own internal misogyny, in the internal misogyny that you've kind of kept through Islam, it will slowly erode itself, because you'll start seeing men and women and girls will be equal from such a young age. When you're going to school together, you're not forced to sexually segregate, and they're considered the other and these sexual objects from the get-go. And I just always think a woman should fight for her right to be educated, no matter what that entails. Obviously it's however you can, but also just to read. Don't defend Islam blindly, because you're not doing anyone favors, especially not yourself. You're doing yourself the biggest disservice. So by all means, come here, challenge us, confront us, argue with us, that's fine. But at least look into it yourself, because I think that's the first step women should make. If we acknowledge that there's something wrong, there's something very, very gravely wrong, then we can all kind of act from there. And that's only taking us a step beyond what we are now.
Awesome. Malij, your take? Any last words?
On the future. I think the same thing. The information era is going to change it. I think I'm hoping in the next 5 years, the term ex-Muslim isn't going to be just a normal term. I'm hoping for the best. I think it is changing the world. Hopefully we can get the big people to change, the governments to change, laws to actually be implemented, and then we can actually see a change on the surface. But that's about it. But thank you, ladies. I do have to run too.
We are
It was so
ending our
nice
stream
meeting
also.
you.
Thank you, Malij, so much.
Thank you so much for your
Bye-bye.
input. It was lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, I will
Nuria,
definitely Nuria. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Nuria, thanks a lot. It was awesome having you, and I really had a blast. I really enjoyed having you on the show, because it's so rare to talk to women And
Honestly, this felt amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Literally, like when the three of us were talking, I did get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside that, like, I'm
yeah.
so used to talking to guys and trying to explain our viewpoint, and I've seen you come on all these channels and try and speak for us. But when we all speak together and we're all kind of just sharing like this, it really, really is amazing. So, I mean, I'd love to have you on my channel as well, and also like let's bust out these same conversations in Urdu. You know?
Yes, we'll be glad to do that, and hopefully we'll plan it out soon, the Urdu one also, and probably we can do it on both our channels simultaneously also. Hopefully
Definitely.
that'll work out.
Thank you so much again, Sultan Salateen. Really
You're
enjoyed
welcome.
it.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, please end with a bye. Read your sentence. I cut you off. At the end, I would just want you all of you to think for a minute. A body is a body. Discriminating a person on the base of what they are genetically made up of or how their body appears. It might have seemed cool at the time when there was not much, scientific data available. But in now today's time and now it seems so absurd that you would discriminate on the basis of some book that was there, a few hundred years ago, and you're still stuck on it. It seems absurd. Please think, please treat women with respect. Try and be more compassionate. Try and be more understanding towards their needs and their. Let them fly, let them be themselves, let them explore their own avenues, and let them be human. And if nothing
Let
more.
them have for themselves what you would want for yourself.
Exactly. So with that, I'll end my stream. Thank you, all of you, for listening, and hopefully you'll all have enjoyed and we'll be talking again soon. Thanks a lot. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.